The snow didn't care about justice. It fell the same on good land and bad, on honest graves and shallow ones. That February, it buried the Mercer Ranch under 3 feet of white silence, and somewhere beneath the collapsed eastern stable, it tried to bury Rowan Mercer too. She woke to darkness and the smell of her own blood. Her first thought wasn't survival. It was simpler than that. More animal. Breathe. The second breath told her ribs were cracked. At least 2, maybe more. The third breath brought memory rushing back like bile. Uncle Silas. His sons. The lamp thrown. The sound of her father's desk splintering under an axe. You got no claim here, girl. Your daddy's debts are ours now. She'd fought, clawed at Silas's face hard enough to leave marks, felt her cousin Jacob's fist crack against her jaw before the world tilted and she was falling into the smell of hay and horse panic, and then the beams came down and everything went to black. Now she was pinned, a timber across her legs, another against her shoulder. The air tasted like dust and iron and something worse, kerosene. They'd burned it, burned the whole damn place and left her inside to make it look like accident, like tragedy, like the frontier swallowing one more unlucky family. She tried to scream, managed a sound somewhere between a cough and a sob. Nobody came. The cold seeped in slow, started at her fingers and toes, worked inward like a patient thing. She'd heard stories about freezing, how it felt like sleep at the end, how you stopped shivering and started dreaming, and then you just didn't wake up. Peaceful, they said. Rowan decided she'd rather be angry. She braced her good arm against the beam and pushed. Pain screamed up her side. She pushed harder. The timber shifted half an inch, then stopped. She could hear the wind outside howling like it was looking for a way in, could hear the creak and settle of wood that had burned hot and was now freezing solid. Not like this, she whispered. Her voice sounded strange, too thin, too young. Not from them. It took her an hour to free her legs, another hour to crawl 5 feet through the wreckage. When she finally broke through into open air, the sun was setting and the world was painted in shades of pink and gray that were too pretty for what had just happened. The main house was gone, just a black skeleton of beams and a chimney standing alone like a gravestone. The barn had collapsed on itself. The chicken coop was ash. Even the old oak her mother had planted when Rowan was born had split down the middle from the heat. She knelt in the snow and vomited blood. Then she stood up. The town of Ashford's Creek sat 7 miles south, close enough to see smoke, far enough to pretend they hadn't. Rowan made it 3 miles before her legs quit. She woke at dawn in a snowbank, fingers blue, and kept walking. Sheriff Calhoun met her at the edge of town. He was a soft man with soft eyes who'd bounced Rowan on his knee when she was small. Now he looked at her like she was a ghost he didn't want to see. Rowan, Jesus, girl. My uncle burned us out. Her voice came out steady. That surprised her. Killed my father, left me to die. I need you to arrest him. Calhoun's face did something complicated. Now, let's not go making accusations we can't prove. There were 5 of them. Silas, Jacob, Thomas, and 2 hands I didn't recognize. They came after dark. Silas said my father's debts were his now. Said I had no claim. Then your father did have debts. Calhoun said it gentle, like that made it better. Silas holds the notes, legal notes, Rowan. Signed and witnessed. So he gets to burn us out? Gets to murder? Nobody's proven anybody murdered anybody. The sheriff's voice hardened just enough to show the shape of things. What I see is a tragic fire. A girl in shock, making wild claims about kin who've only ever tried to help. Silas already reported it, said he saw the smoke, rode out to help, but got there too late. Found you wandering, delirious. Rowan stared at him. You spoke to Silas. He came in yesterday. Before I did. Calhoun had the decency to look uncomfortable. Girl, I know you're hurting, but Silas is preparing a place for you. His wife says, I'll die first. You nearly did. He reached for her arm. She jerked back. Rowan, be reasonable. You got no house, no family, no money. Winter's not even half done. You come stay with the Johnsons for now. We'll sort the legal. The legal is already sorted. Rowan's laugh tasted like copper. He paid you, or promised you something. Doesn't matter which. Calhoun's jaw tightened. You want to make accusations, you bring proof. You want charity, There's Christian women who'll feed you. But you keep spreading poison about respected men, you'll find yourself with fewer friends than you already got." She left him standing there, walked past the general store where faces turned away from the windows, past the church where her mother was buried, past the saloon where her father used to drink away the worry with men who now pretended they'd never known his name. At the edge of town, she stole a horse. It belonged to a cattle buyer named Winters, a mean drunk who'd once tried to shortchange her father on a sale. The roan mare in his paddock was the best thing he owned. Rowan took her, a saddle, and a rifle from his unlocked barn. Nobody stopped her. Nobody even shouted. By the time Winters sobered up enough to notice, Rowan was already gone. She returned to the ranch at nightfall. The snow had covered the worst of it, softening the burn marks, hiding the blood. In the moonlight, it almost looked peaceful, just another piece of forgotten frontier returning to wilderness. Rowan walked through the ruins with the stolen rifle across her back. She had no plan, no destination beyond here. The smart thing would be to run, take the horse and ride east until the territory changed and nobody knew her name. Start over. But the land knew her. The broken fence posts her father had always meant to fix. The creek bed where she'd caught her first trout. The graves on the hill where her mother and baby brother slept under stones Rowan had painted herself when she was 8. "I'm still here," she said to the wind, to the ghosts, to whoever might be listening. "You didn't get rid of me." The wind didn't answer. She spent that first night in the root cellar, the only structure still intact. It was cramped and dark and smelled like earth and old potatoes, but it was shelter. She wrapped herself in horse blankets and shivered until dawn. The second night, she slept in the hayloft of the half-collapsed barn, rifle in her arms. The third night, she didn't sleep at all. By the end of the first week, she'd established a routine. Wake before dawn. Check the traps she'd set for rabbits. Melt snow for water. Eat whatever she'd caught, raw if she had to because smoke from a fire might draw attention. Then work. The work was pointless, she knew. One girl couldn't rebuild what 5 men had destroyed. But pointless work was still work, and work kept you warm, and warm kept you alive. She started with the barn. Salvaged boards that weren't too burned, restacked hay that had escaped the fire, fixed a section of roof enough to keep snow off the mare. The roan watched her with patient eyes, like she understood they were both stolen things now, making do. Rowan named her Ember. "Because we're both what's left after the burning," she explained one frozen morning, her breath clouding white. Ember snorted and went back to eating the spare winter grass Rowan had dug out from under the snow. It was 4 days before she saw another person. She was hauling water from the creek when she heard hoofbeats. 2 riders coming up the southern track. She recognized them from a distance, Jacob and Thomas, her cousins, Silas's sons, the ones who'd held her down while their father gave the orders. Rowan set down the bucket, picked up the rifle, waited. They reined up 50 yards out. Jacob called to her, his voice carrying false cheer across the snow. "Rowan, we've been looking for you. Pa's been worried sick." She fired into the ground 10 feet in front of his horse. The animal reared. Jacob cursed, fighting the reins. Thomas reached for his gun. "Next one's higher," Rowan shouted. Her voice didn't shake. That was good. "You got 3 seconds to turn around." "You crazy bitch!" Thomas started. She fired again. Closer this time, close enough that Thomas's horse bolted sideways and nearly threw him. "1," Rowan said. Jacob got his mount under control, face red. "This land ain't yours anymore. Pa's got the papers." 2. They left. But as they rode, Jacob turned in his saddle and shouted back, "You can't stay out here forever. Winter'll kill you if we don't." Rowan lowered the rifle. Her hands were shaking now, but only now. Only after. She sat down hard in the snow and waited for her heart to stop trying to break out of her chest. That night, she moved her sleeping spot every 2 hours. The frontier had a way of keeping score. Rowan learned this from her father, back when he'd still been the kind of man who taught lessons instead of drowning them in whiskey. The land didn't care if you were good or bad, he'd said. It only cared if you were stubborn, if you could take what it threw at you and still stand up the next morning. Most people can't, he'd told her once, watching a neighbor's wagon roll east after a failed harvest. That's not weakness. That's just sense. But the ones who stay, the ones who stick, The land remembers them. Rowan stuck. Through February's worst cold. Through March winds that tried to peel the roof off her rebuilt barn. Through the night she woke to find a wolf in the hayloft and had to kill it with a shovel because the rifle was out of reach. She ate what she could trap or shoot. Rabbit, mostly. Once, a deer that was already half dead from winter. She learned to stretch a kill for days, to waste nothing, to chew hide strips when her stomach cramped from hunger. The town didn't come. Neither did the law. Silas's men rode by twice more but never approached after she put a bullet through Jacob's hat at 100 yards. She was alone. And alone meant free. Free to curse when she dropped a hammer on her foot. Free to cry when the wind sounded like her mother's voice. Free to stand on the hill by the graves and scream at the sky until her throat bled because there was nobody left to tell her to be quieter, softer, smaller. April brought the thaw. The creek swelled. Green things pushed up through dead grass. The world stopped trying to kill her quite so actively and settled into the slower threat of simple indifference. Rowan was fixing a fence post when she heard the gunshot. It came from the eastern trail, a single crack, then shouting, then the thunder of hooves moving fast. She grabbed her rifle and ran for high ground, a rocky outcrop that gave a view of the approach. 3 riders. No, 2 riders chasing one. The lead horse was big, some kind of thoroughbred mix, and even from a distance Rowan could see it was limping. The rider was slumped forward, barely holding on. The pursuers were gaining. As Rowan watched, one of them raised a pistol and fired. Missed. The fleeing rider tried to urge more speed from the struggling horse, but it was done, finished, about to go down. They were headed straight for her property line. Rowan should have stayed hidden, should have let frontier justice play out however it was going to play out, and kept her head down. Should have learned by now that helping strangers was how you ended up dead or worse. Instead, she found herself moving down the rocks, angling for the tree line near where the chase would pass. The fleeing rider hit her land at a full gallop. The horse's breathing sounded like a bellows with holes in it. 20 yards behind, the pursuers were closing, already celebrating. Rowan stepped out of the trees. "Down!" she shouted. The rider had good instincts. He dropped, flattening against the horse's neck. Rowan fired twice, fast. Not at the men, she wasn't looking to kill anyone today, but at the ground in front of their horses. The animals shied hard. One of the riders went flying, the other fought his mount to a stop, cursing. "This is private land," Rowan called out. She worked the rifle's action, loud in the sudden quiet. "You're trespassing." The man still mounted was young, maybe 20, with a face that hadn't learned caution yet. "That bastard's a thief. I don't care what he's got. You want him? You go around. 3 miles south, 3 miles north. Your choice." "You're that Mercer girl." The young man squinted at her. "The crazy one living in the burnout. Look, we don't want trouble with you, but—" She shot his hat off. He yelped, hands flying up. His companion, still on the ground, scrambled backward. "That's the only warning," Rowan said. "Next time, I'm aiming lower." They left. Slowly at first, like they might come back. But when Rowan followed them with the rifle barrel, they found more speed. She watched until they disappeared over the ridge, then turned to the stranger. He'd managed to dismount, but only barely. Now he was leaning against his dying horse, one hand pressed to his side. Blood leaked between his fingers. His coat was good quality, too good for out here, and his boots were custom work. His face was pale under trail dust and maybe a week's worth of beard. "You hit?" Rowan asked. "Yes." His voice was rough. Educated accent, though. Eastern, maybe. "Unfortunately." "How bad?" "Bad enough that your fence line looks very far away." Rowan studied him. Rich clothes, expensive horse, running from men who called him a thief. Every instinct she had said to walk away, let the frontier sort out its own messes. But he'd flattened when she'd told him to. Hadn't argued, hadn't tried to shoot his way past her. And there was something in his eyes. Not fear, exactly, but a kind of tired recognition she knew from her own mirror. "Can you walk?" "I can try." He made it 10 steps before his legs quit. Rowan caught him before he hit the ground, grunting under his weight. He was tall, solid muscle under the fancy coat, and heavier than he looked. "Sorry," he mumbled. "This is undignified." "Shut up and lean." She got him to the barn through sheer stubbornness. By the time she lowered him onto a bed of hay, her ribs were screaming and his face had gone gray. "I need to see the wound," she said. He nodded, too far gone to argue. She peeled back his coat, his vest, his shirt, all of it tailored, all of it probably worth more than her entire ranch used to be. The bullet had caught him in the side, just above the hip, clean through at least. That was lucky. "This is going to hurt," Rowan said. "I'm aware." She'd learned field medicine the hard way, patching herself up through the winter. This was worse, more blood, deeper damage, but the principle was the same. Clean it, pack it, pray it doesn't turn septic. He passed out halfway through. That made it easier. When she was done, she sat back and looked at him properly for the first time. Mid-30s, she guessed. Strong jaw. Scars on his knuckles that said he knew how to fight. Calluses on his hands that said he knew how to work, despite the wealthy man's clothes. "Who are you?" she asked the unconscious stranger. He didn't answer. Bad. He slept for 2 days. Rowan kept watch, checking his breathing, changing the bandages, spooning water between his lips when he was conscious enough to swallow. She also went through his belongings. The saddlebags held $300 in mixed bills, a deed to property in the Northern Territories, correspondence from a cattle broker in St. Louis, and a pistol that had never been fired. The horse, once she'd put it down, mercifully, had brand marks she didn't recognize, but a saddle that cost more than most men made in a year. Rich then. Or criminal. Maybe both. On the third morning, he opened his eyes. "You're still alive," Rowan said. She was sitting on an overturned crate, cleaning the rifle. "Wasn't sure you'd make it." He blinked, orienting himself. Looked down at his bandaged side, then around the barn, then at her. "You're the girl from the fence line. And you're the thief who bled on my hay." A smile ghosted across his face. "I'm not a thief." That's what a thief would say. Fair point. He tried to sit up, thought better of it, settled for propping himself on one elbow. "I'm Cole Ashford, and I owe you my life, apparently." "Rowan Mercer, and you owe me a horse. That thoroughbred of yours wasn't going to make it another mile." "Ember? That's my horse. Yours was—" "I didn't name it. Seemed wrong to name something I had to kill." Cole's expression did something complicated. "That animal was worth $2,000. Now it's worth whatever the wolves leave after they're done with it." Silence. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. It clearly hurt him, but he laughed anyway. A real sound, startled and genuine. "You're not what I expected," he said. "You expected something? When I rode past this place last fall, I was told it belonged to a family with a daughter. I expected, I don't know, not this." Rowan went back to cleaning the rifle. "Last fall was different. That family's gone. What's left is just me." "What happened?" "Why do you care?" "I don't particularly." Cole shifted, wincing. "But we're going to be sharing this barn for at least a week, and silence makes recovery tedious." So she told him. Not everything. Not the feeling of beams crushing her in the dark. Not the way her ribs still ached when it rained. But enough. The fire. Silas. The sheriff who wouldn't help. The winter she'd survived alone. When she finished, Cole was quiet for a long time. "Your uncle still has the land claim?" he finally asked. "Legal and witnessed, apparently." "And the sheriff?" "Bought or scared. Doesn't matter which." Cole nodded slowly, like he was working through a problem. "How much did your father owe?" "Why?" "Humor me." Rowan shrugged. $1,100, maybe 12. He'd taken loans to buy breeding stock that died in a bad winter 2 years back. Silas held the notes. And Silas now holds the land those notes were secured against. That's how debt works. That's how a legal seizure disguised as debt collection works. Cole met her eyes. Your father dying doesn't automatically transfer his debt to family members with a claim on the property. Silas would have had to go through probate, establish that the debt exceeded the estate value, and even then, did your father have a will? Rowan stared at him. How do you know all this? I own 3 ranches and hold contracts on 7 more. You don't build an operation that size without understanding frontier property law. He tried to sit up further, grunted in pain. If you can prove the fire was arson, I can't. I was unconscious. It's my word against 5 of theirs. Then you need leverage. I need a miracle. No! Cole's voice hardened. You need a lawyer, a surveyor, and about $600 for filing fees and bribes. The law out here is corrupt, but it's still law. It can be bought. The question is whether you're willing to fight that fight or if you'd rather just survive. Rowan set down the rifle. You don't know me well enough to ask that question. You're right. I apologize. But he didn't look apologetic. He looked calculating. Here's what I do know. You saved my life. You could have let those men kill me or killed me yourself and taken everything I had. Instead, you patched me up and fed me your rabbit. That means either you're unusually kind or unusually strategic. Maybe I'm just stupid. You're not stupid. You're 17 and you survived a winter alone that would have killed grown men. You're angry and skilled, and you know exactly how much you've lost. He paused. I also know what it's like to have family take something that was yours and call it legal. Something in his voice made Rowan look at him sharper. Is that why those men were chasing you? Different family, different betrayal. Same result. Someone I trusted tried to put me in the ground and take what I'd built. Cole touched his bandaged side. They almost succeeded. But they didn't. No. And your uncle didn't succeed with you either. So the question becomes, what do we do about it? We? Rowan laughed, harsh. You'll be gone in a week. Back to your ranches and your contracts. This is my problem. It could be our problem. Cole held her gaze. I need somewhere to recover where the people hunting me won't think to look. You need resources, contacts, and someone who knows how to fight powerful men in court instead of just with guns. We could help each other. I don't need help. Everyone needs help. Pride just makes us pretend otherwise. Rowan stood, angry now without quite knowing why. You don't get it. You're rich. You can just buy your way out of problems. But people like me, we don't have that option. All I've got is this burned land and a stolen horse and the ability to not die when I'm supposed to. That's it. That's the whole list. Cole didn't argue. Didn't tell her she was wrong. Just nodded and said quietly, then let me add one more thing to that list. Someone who owes you a debt. She wanted to refuse, wanted to tell him to heal up and ride off and leave her to the life she'd built from ashes and spite. But something in his eyes stopped her. Not pity, not charity, but recognition. Like he saw exactly who she was and didn't flinch from it. 1 week, she heard herself say. You stay 1 week until you're strong enough to ride. Then we're even, and you leave. 1 week, Cole agreed. They shook on it, there in the dusty barn with blood on the hay and the smell of medicine hanging in the air. Rowan told herself it didn't mean anything. She was wrong. Cole Ashford turned out to be a terrible patient. On the 4th day, Rowan found him trying to saddle Ember with one hand while the other clutched his bandaged side. She grabbed the saddle blanket from him and threw it across the barn. What the hell are you doing? Testing my mobility. He was sweating, face pale. I need to know my limitations. Your limitation is that you got shot 3 days ago. Sit down before you tear the stitches. I've had worse. Good for you. Sit down anyway. He didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against the stall rail, breathing hard. Those men who are chasing me, they work for my brother, Marcus. He'll have people looking, asking questions. The longer I stay here, the more danger I bring to your door. Rowan picked up the blanket, started brushing hay off it. Let me worry about my own door. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Marcus isn't some frontier thug. He's rich, connected, willing to kill family for money. She looked at him. Yeah, I got the idea. Sounds familiar, actually. Cole's jaw tightened. This isn't a joke. Do I look like I'm laughing? Rowan threw the blanket back on the rack. You made a deal, 1 week. It's been 4 days. You can survive 3 more without testing whether your guts stay inside when you ride. They stared at each other. Finally, Cole looked away first. You're right. I apologize. Stop apologizing and start sitting. He sat. Rowan went back to mucking out the stall, working around him. After a while, Cole spoke again, quieter now. My father built our ranch from nothing, spent 40 years turning scrubland into something that mattered. When he died, he split it between Marcus and me. Even shares, equal partnership. He paused. Marcus wanted it all, so he fabricated debt, forged contracts, convinced our father's old partners that I was stealing from the operation. By the time I realized what was happening, I'd been voted out of my own company. Why not fight him? I tried. Spent 2 years in courts that Marcus had already bought, lost everything except the northern property and enough cash to start over. His voice went flat. Then Marcus decided even that was too much, hence the ambush. Rowan kept working, but she was listening. Your own brother. Half-brother, technically. Different mothers. But yes. Cole touched his side again, unconscious gesture. Family can be the worst kind of enemy. They know exactly where to cut. She thought about Silas's face in the lamplight, about Jacob holding her down while Thomas ransacked her father's desk. Yeah, they do. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of coming rain. Ember shifted in her stall, nose buried in the sparse hay Rowan had managed to scavenge. That horse needs better feed, Cole said. That horse needs a lot of things. Gets what I can give her. There's a cattle broker in Ridgeway, 2 days south. He owes me a favor. I could write you a letter of introduction. I don't take charity. It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. Cole met her eyes. You saved my life, and you're feeding me your supplies. The least I can do is help you keep your horse from starving. Rowan wanted to argue, but Ember was getting thin and winter hay didn't last forever, and pride didn't fill empty bellies. Fine. Write your letter, Cole smiled. It changed his whole face, made him look younger. I'll need paper. Don't have any. Then I'll remember his name and you can mention mine when you go. Tell him Cole Ashford sent you. He'll extend credit. I don't want credit. I want... Rowan stopped. What did she want? The ranch rebuilt? Her family back? Silas in the ground? You want justice, Cole finished. I understand, but sometimes justice takes resources you don't have yet. There's no shame in accepting help to get there. Spoke like someone who's never had to live on scraps. You'd be surprised. Something dark crossed his expression. Before my father struck it rich, we lived in a one-room shack in Missouri. I was 8 before I owned shoes that fit, 15 before I ate meat more than once a week. I remember what hungry feels like. Rowan studied him. The expensive coat, the educated accent, the hands that were calloused but clean. Hard to picture him as the desperate kid he was describing. What changed? She asked. My father found gold. Not much. Enough to buy land and cattle and a chance to build something real. He was smart about it, worked himself nearly to death, but he made it count. Cole's voice went soft. He used to say that money was just a tool, could build or destroy, depending on who held it. He tried to teach us that. Marcus heard the words, but never learned the lesson. And you? I'm still trying to figure out which one I am. Before Rowan could respond, Ember suddenly lifted her head, ears forward. A moment later, Rowan heard it too. Hoofbeats, multiple riders, coming fast. She grabbed the rifle. Cole tried to stand. Stay down, Rowan hissed. She moved to the barn door, peered through the gap. 3 horses. The lead rider was Silas. Her uncle sat tall in the saddle, dressed like he was going to church. Behind him, Jacob and a man Rowan didn't recognize, older, wearing a badge that caught the afternoon light. Rowan Mercer, Silas's voice carried across the yard. I know you're in there. Come out. We need to talk. Rowan didn't move. Behind her, she heard Cole's quiet breathing. I brought Sheriff Calhoun, Silas continued. This is official business now, girl. You stole property belonging to Carson Winters. That's a hanging offense. The new lawman, not Calhoun, someone else, urged his horse forward. Miss Mercer, I'm Deputy Marshal Hendricks from the Territorial Office. Mr. Winters has filed a complaint regarding a stolen horse and rifle. I'd like to hear your side before we proceed. Rowan's mind raced. A deputy marshal was different from a bought sheriff. Federal appointment, not local politics. That could be better or worse depending on how deep Silas's reach went. Cole appeared at her shoulder, moving quiet despite his injury. Don't go out there alone. They're not going to shoot me with a federal marshal watching. You sure about that? She wasn't, but staying hidden wasn't an option either. Rowan opened the barn door and stepped into the yard, rifle loose in her hands but pointed at the ground. Respectful but ready. Marshal, she said, nodding to Hendricks, then colder. Uncle. Silas's expression was all concerned family. Made her want to shoot him on principle. Rowan, thank heaven you're alive. We've been so worried. After you disappeared from town, I didn't disappear. I came home. To a burned ranch with no shelter and no supplies. Silas shook his head, playing to the marshal. Girl's been out here alone all winter, not right in the head anymore, as you can see. Hendricks ignored him, focused on Rowan. The complaint states you took a horse and rifle from Carson Winters' property in Ashford's Creek without permission or payment. Is that accurate? I took them, Rowan admitted. Winters owed my father money from a cattle sale. I collected the debt in trade. You have documentation of this debt? It burned with everything else. Convenient, Jacob muttered. Rowan's finger tightened on the rifle stock. My father kept his business records in the house, along with everything else. You want to check the ashes? Feel free. Hendricks pulled a notebook from his coat. Mr. Winters claims the debt in question was settled 2 years ago. He has a receipt signed by Thomas Mercer. Then he forged it. My father never... Your father was drunk more often than sober, Silas interrupted, voice gentle and poisonous. Marshal, with all respect, this girl has been making wild accusations since the fire, claiming I burned her out, killed her father, tried to murder her. Meanwhile, I've been trying to help, offered her a home, filed legal claims to protect her inheritance from creditors. But instead of gratitude, I get threats and stolen property. Rowan felt her control slipping. You lying piece of... Miss Mercer, Hendricks's voice cut through. I understand you've suffered loss, but theft is theft, regardless of circumstance. I'll need you to surrender the horse and rifle, then accompany me to Ridgeway to answer formal charges. I'm not going anywhere with him. Rowan jerked her chin at Silas. You'll be in my custody, not his. Same thing. He owns half the territory, including probably you. Hendricks's expression hardened. I don't appreciate accusations of corruption, miss. I'm trying to handle this fairly. Fairly? Rowan's laugh was sharp. My family's dead, my land's stolen, and you want me to surrender the only things keeping me alive because a drunk filed a complaint? That's your fare? The law doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about facts. Then here's a fact. Cole stepped out of the barn. He moved stiff, one hand pressed to his side, but his voice was steady. Rowan Mercer is under my employ as a ranch hand. The horse and rifle were provided as part of her compensation. If Carson Winters has a complaint about that arrangement, he can take it up with me. Silence. Silas stared. Jacob's hand drifted toward his gun. Hendrick's eyes narrowed. And you are? The marshal asked. Cole Ashford. I own the Triple Cross operation in the Northern Territories, along with holdings in 3 states. I'm currently recovering from an injury, and Miss Mercer has graciously provided shelter and care. In exchange, I've hired her to help manage this property once I'm well enough to purchase it. The lie was smooth, delivered with the confidence of someone used to being believed. Rowan kept her face blank, following his lead. Silas found his voice first. This land isn't for sale. I hold the legal claim subject to probate review, Cole interrupted, which, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't been filed yet. Frontier property law requires probate within 90 days of death for debt-secured assets. Thomas Mercer died in February. It's now late April. You're running out of time to establish clean title, Mr. Mercer. Silas's face darkened. Who the hell are you to... Someone who knows what a fraudulent land grab looks like. Cole's voice stayed level. You burned him out, didn't you? Killed him, left the daughter for dead, then claimed debt to seize the property. Clean and simple. Except the daughter survived. You've got no proof of any of that. Not yet. But I know people. Lawyers, surveyors, federal investigators. The kind who ask uncomfortable questions about fires that kill debtors right when their land value spikes. Cole smiled, cold. Want to bet I can't find proof if I start looking? Hendricks held up a hand. Let's all take a breath here. Mr. Ashford, do you have documentation of this employment arrangement? I can provide it, along with payment records, property assessments, and a dozen witnesses who will testify to Rowan Mercer's character and capability. Cole met the marshal's eyes. Or we can skip the paperwork and acknowledge that Carson Winters is using you to harass a girl who took a horse worth maybe $40. Your choice. The marshal looked between them. Whatever he saw made him sigh and close his notebook. I'll inform Mr. Winters that the matter is in dispute and recommend he pursue civil rather than criminal remedies. He turned his horse. Miss Mercer, consider this a warning. Any further appropriation of property will result in arrest. Understood, Marshal. Hendricks rode off. Silas stayed, face twisted with rage. This isn't over, girl. That land is mine by right, and I'll see you. You'll see me when the probate judge does, Cole said. Until then, you're trespassing. Leave. For a moment, Rowan thought Silas might actually try something. His hand moved toward his coat. Jacob tensed. Then Silas seemed to remember there was a federal marshal within earshot and forced a smile that looked like a wound. Enjoy your time here, he said quietly, while it lasts. They left. Rowan watched until they disappeared, then turned to Cole. What the hell was that? That was me keeping you out of jail. By lying to a federal marshal, by claiming you're buying this place? I didn't lie. I said I'm planning to purchase it once I'm well enough. That's true. I'm also planning to hire you. Also true. Cole leaned against the barn door, breathing hard. And the part about Silas running out of time for probate? Completely accurate. Rowan stared at him. You're serious. You actually want to buy this burned-out piece of nowhere. I want to help you keep it. There's a difference. Why? Because your uncle reminds me of my brother. Because you saved my life. Because I'm tired of watching powerful men steal from people who can't fight back. He straightened with obvious effort. Pick whichever reason you like. They're all true. I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me invest in something worth protecting. Cole met her eyes. 1 week, you said. It's been 5 days, 2 more, and I ride out. But before I go, I'd like to make sure you have a fighting chance at keeping what's yours. Rowan wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him she didn't need rescuing, didn't want his money, didn't trust rich men even when they bled on her hay. But she thought about Silas's face, about Hendrick's notebook, about winter coming again, and finding her still alone in a barn. What's the catch? She asked. No catch, but there are terms. Of course there are. Cole almost smiled. You let me bring in a surveyor to establish clear property boundaries. You let me file the probate challenge under my name so Silas can't claim you're doing it out of spite. And you actually take the job I'm offering, managing this land with the goal of making it profitable enough that when I sell it back to you, you can afford the payments. Sell it back, not give it. Giving creates dependence. Selling creates partnership. He shifted, wincing. I told you, I watched my father build something from nothing. He didn't do it with charity. He did it with fair terms and mutual respect. That's what I'm offering. Rowan looked at the burned house, the half-rebuilt barn, the graves on the hill, thought about pride versus survival, about fighting alone versus fighting smart. I want it in writing, she said finally. Agreed. And I want to know everything about your brother. If Marcus's men come here looking for you, they won't. I covered my trail well enough, but if they do, I'll handle it. You have my word. His word. Like that meant something, like words from rich men were worth more than the paper they weren't written on yet. But Cole had bled for her, or at least near her, had stood up to Silas when he could have stayed hidden, had offered terms instead of taking over. That had to count for something. 2 more days, Rowan said. Then we talk details. 2 more days, Cole agreed. He went back inside to rest. Rowan stayed in the yard, rifle across her knees, watching the horizon for trouble that would definitely come. Just maybe not today. The next morning, Cole was up before dawn. Rowan found him in the barn, attempting to lift a bag of feed one-handed. She took it from him without comment and dumped it in Ember's stall. You're supposed to be resting, she said. I've rested enough. My side's healing clean and I'm tired of being useless. You're not useless. You're recovering from being shot. Same thing out here. Cole picked up a shovel, tested his grip. I grew up working ranches. I know what needs doing. Rowan watched him for a moment, then shrugged. Fine. But if you tear those stitches, I'm not fixing them again. Noted. They worked in silence for a while. Cole moved slow but steady, mucking stalls and hauling water with the careful determination of someone who knew his limits but refused to acknowledge them. Rowan let him, partly because she could use the help, partly because she understood the need to prove you could still function after something tried to break you. Around mid-morning, Cole paused to catch his breath. Tell me about the land. What about it? Acreage, water rights, grazing quality. Your father's operation before he lost the breeding stock. Rowan leaned on her own shovel. 160 acres, most of it decent grazing if you can keep the erosion under control. Creek runs year-round, fed by snowmelt from the ridge. My father ran about 50 head before the bad winter. After that, she shrugged. Debt and whiskey. You know how it goes. 50 head on 160 acres is conservative. You could run twice that if you manage the rotation properly. With what money? What fencing? What help? With investment, strategy, time. Cole's eyes were distant, calculating. This land sits on the route between Ridgeway and the northern mining camps. Cattle drives pass through twice a year. If you had proper facilities, pens, feed storage, freshwater access, you could charge for overnight grazing. At a trading post, maybe a smithy, and suddenly you're pulling income from traffic, not just livestock. Rowan stared at him. You've been here less than a week, and you're already planning my future? I'm planning possibilities. Whether you pursue them is your choice. Awful generous with your plans. I'm a businessman. Planning is what I do. Cole went back to shoveling. But I've also learned that the best investments are the ones where everyone benefits. You get a viable operation. I get a reliable partner in territory my brother doesn't control. The drovers get services they need. Everyone wins. Except Silas. Especially Silas, which is an added bonus. Despite herself, Rowan felt the corner of her mouth twitch. You really hate men like him, don't you? I hate men who use power to take what they want instead of building something worth having. Cole dumped a shovelful of soiled hay onto the pile. My brother's the same, born with every advantage and still needed to steal more. There's no satisfaction in that kind of victory, just emptiness dressed up as success. Is that why you're helping me? To stick it to men like them? Partly, but also because you remind me of myself at 17. Angry, stubborn, convinced that accepting help was the same as accepting defeat. He looked at her. Took me years to learn the difference. Figure I can save you some time. Maybe I like being angry and stubborn. You can be both and still let people help. They're not mutually exclusive. Rowan didn't have an answer for that, so she went back to work, and Cole did the same, and the morning passed in the easy silence of shared labor. By afternoon, Cole was flagging. His face had gone pale again, and he was holding his side more obviously. Rowan called a halt. That's enough. You're going to hurt yourself. I'm fine. You're white as milk and sweating. Sit down before you fall down. Cole opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. He sat on a hay bale, breathing carefully. I hate this, being weak. You're not weak, you're healing. There's a difference. Tell that to my pride. Rowan handed him the water skin. Pride doesn't keep you alive. Sense does. And sense says you pushed too hard today. He drank, then looked at her with something like amusement. You're bossy when you're worried. I'm not worried. You are. You think I'm going to keel over and you'll have to drag my corpse somewhere, and that sounds inconvenient. It would be inconvenient. You're heavy. Cole laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. It hurts. Then don't say stupid things. They sat in the barn while the afternoon light slanted through gaps in the walls. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain again. Ember dozed in her stall. Everything felt suspended, like the world was waiting for something to happen. Can I ask you something? Cole said after a while. Depends on the question. What happened to your mother? Rowan went still. Of all the questions she'd expected, that wasn't one of them. Why? You mentioned graves on the hill. Your father and who else? She could have refused to answer, could have told him it was none of his business. Instead, she heard herself saying, my mother and my baby brother. She died giving birth to him. He followed 3 days later. How old were you? 8. That's young to lose so much. Yeah, well, the frontier doesn't care how old you are. Rowan picked at a splinter on the hay bale. My father tried. For about a year, he really tried. But he'd loved her, really loved her, the kind you don't get over. Without her, he just hollowed out, started drinking to fill the space, and never stopped. Cole was quiet. Then, I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Doesn't change anything. No, but it's still true. They sat with that for a while. Finally, Rowan stood. I'm going to check the traps. You stay here and don't do anything stupid. Define stupid. Anything that involves standing up. She left before he could argue, rifle slung over her shoulder. The traps yielded 2 rabbits and a grouse. Good haul. Enough for a few days if she was careful. She was heading back when she heard horses again. Not from the road this time. From the North Trail, the one that led to the high country. 3 riders, moving slow and cautious. Not Silas's people. Wrong direction. Rowan circled wide, using the tree cover. Got close enough to see their faces. One she didn't recognize. But the other 2 matched descriptions Cole had given during his fever dreams. Young men with family resemblance, dressed for travel, but armed like they expected trouble. Marcus's men. Had to be. She got back to the barn fast. Cole was exactly where she'd left him, which was good because she didn't have time to search. "We've got company," she said. 3 riders from the north. I think they're yours." Cole's expression went hard. "How close?" 20 minutes, maybe less. They're being careful." He tried to stand. His legs shook. Rowan pushed him back down. "You can't ride," she said. "I can try. You'll fall off before you make it a mile, and even if you don't, you'll leave a blood trail they can follow." She was already thinking, planning. The root cellar, it's hidden and they won't search there first. "Rowan, shut up and move." She got him to the cellar, which took longer than it should have. By the time she'd lowered him down and covered the entrance with boards and dirt, the riders were close enough to hear. She shoved the rifle in after Cole, along with his pistol and saddlebags. "Stay quiet," she hissed, "no matter what happens. If they hurt you, they won't. I'm just some frontier girl squatting in a burned ranch, not worth their time." She sealed the entrance and ran for the barn, grabbed a bucket, started hauling water like she'd been doing it all along. By the time the riders appeared, she was sloshing water into Ember's trough, humming tunelessly. They rode into the yard like they owned it. The leader, mid-20s, dark hair, mean eyes, dismounted and gave her an appraising look that made her skin crawl. "Afternoon, miss. This the Mercer place?" Rowan kept working. "Was. Now it's just empty land and me. You live here alone?" "Unless you count the horse." The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "We're looking for someone. Man in his 30s, tall, might be injured, riding a valuable horse. You seen anyone like that?" "Nope." "You sure? We heard someone fired shots near here about a week back." "That was me. Ran off some trespassers." Rowan finally looked at him. "This is private land. You might want to remember that." One of the other men laughed. "Private land that's half burned? Girl, you don't own nothing. Now answer the question proper. You seen our man or not?" "Already answered, and you're still trespassing." The leader held up a hand, silencing his companion. He walked closer to Rowan, studying her. "What happened here?" "Fire. Family died. I'm what's left. Rough winter, I bet." "I've had better." He circled the yard, eyes moving over everything. The barn, the house ruins, the graves on the hill. Looking for signs of Cole. Rowan kept her face blank, kept dumping water, kept being exactly what she seemed, a girl trying to survive in a burned-out ranch. Finally, the leader turned back to her. "If you do see our man, there's a reward, $100. "For what?" "Theft, fraud, family business." He smiled again. "You help us find him. That 100 could set you up nice. Maybe get you through another winter." Rowan met his eyes. "I don't take money for turning over men who might be innocent." "Innocent?" The man laughed. "Sweetheart, nobody's innocent out here, just varying degrees of guilty." "Then I guess we're all damned. Now get off my land." For a moment she thought he'd push it. His hand drifted toward his gun. The other 2 riders tensed. Then he seemed to decide she wasn't worth the trouble and mounted up. "We'll be around," he said, asking questions. "If you change your mind about that reward—" "I won't." They rode off south toward town. Rowan watched until they were gone, then counted to 100 before moving. She unsealed the root cellar. Cole was pale and shaking when she helped him out. "They're gone?" "For now, but they'll be back once they realize I'm the only person who's seen you and isn't talking." "Then I need to leave, tonight." "You can barely stand." "I'll manage." "You'll die." Rowan grabbed his arm. "Listen to me. They're heading to town. They'll ask questions, maybe buy some information from whoever's selling. That gives us maybe 2 days before they come back with leverage. 2 days to figure out a real plan instead of you riding off to bleed out somewhere. Cole looked at her. Why are you doing this? Because you helped me when you didn't have to. Because those men are exactly the kind of people I hate. Because... She stopped. Because I said 1 week and it's only been 6 days. I keep my word. Even when it's dangerous? Especially then. He studied her face like he was trying to memorize it, then nodded. 2 days. But after that, I'm gone whether I'm healed or not. I won't bring Marcus's war to your doorstep. Marcus's war is already at everyone's doorstep. Difference is, most people don't fight back. Rowan helped him toward the barn. We do. That night they made plans. Cole had contacts in Ridgeway, people who owed him favors, people Marcus couldn't touch. If they could get word to them, they could arrange safe passage north, maybe even protection. But getting word meant someone had to ride to town, and Rowan couldn't leave Cole alone if Marcus's men came back. There's a kid in Ashford's Creek, Rowan said. Billy Hooks, 14, fast runner, knows how to keep his mouth shut. I could pay him to carry a message. With what money? She pulled out the roll of bills from Cole's saddlebag. He'd told her where it was, along with everything else he carried. Trust, he called it. Insurance, she thought. No, Cole said. That's for you. For the land fight. It's for whatever keeps us both alive long enough to have a land fight. Rowan counted out $50. This gets Billy to Ridgeway and back with a reply. The rest we save for lawyers and bribes. You're assuming Billy won't just take the money and run. He won't. His father was friends with mine before the drinking got bad. She tucked the money in her pocket. I'll leave at dawn. Be back by nightfall. And if Marcus's men come while you're gone, then you hide in the cellar and pray they don't find the entrance. She met his eyes. Or you shoot them, whichever seems more practical at the time. Cole almost smiled. You know, when I rode up here bleeding and half dead, I expected maybe some water and a bandage, possibly a mercy bullet. Sorry to disappoint. You didn't. You exceeded every expectation I had. He paused. Thank you, Rowan, for all of it. She shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. Thank me when we're both still alive at the end of this. But as she settled in for the night, rifle across her knees and Cole's breathing steady in the darkness, she let herself acknowledge the truth. She didn't want him to leave. Not because she needed his help, though she did. Not because she was afraid to be alone again, though she was. But because somewhere in the last 6 days, the barn had started to feel less empty. The work had started to feel less pointless. The future had started to look like something other than survival. And that terrified her more than Silas or Marcus or any number of armed men ever could. Because hope was dangerous. Hope made you vulnerable. Hope was the thing that hurt most when it got taken away. Still, despite every lesson the frontier had beaten into her, despite knowing better, she hoped anyway. Dawn came cold and gray, the kind of morning that felt like a threat. Rowan saddled Ember while Cole watched from the barn door, still moving stiff but steadier than yesterday. You don't have to do this, he said. We covered this already. She checked the girth strap, pulled it tighter. Billy gets the message to your people in Ridgeway. They send help or at least a plan. We buy time. And if Marcus's men are watching the roads, then I'll be a girl riding to town for supplies. Nothing suspicious about that. She swung into the saddle, felt Ember shift beneath her. You stay hidden. Don't answer the door for anyone. Don't make noise. Don't exist. I understand. Cole's expression was caught between concern and something else she couldn't name. Be careful. Always am. She rode out before he could say anything more, before the worry in his voice could make her reconsider. The morning air bit at her face, carrying the smell of coming weather. Rain by afternoon, maybe. Or snow. It was still early enough in spring for that. The ride to Ashford's Creek took 3 hours. Rowan kept to the back trails, avoiding the main road where Marcus's men might be watching. The land here was familiar, every ridge and creek bed mapped in her memory from childhood rides with her father, back when he'd still been the kind of man who taught her things, before the grief had hollowed him out. She found Billy Hooks behind his father's smithy, hauling coal like his life depended on it. Probably did. Tom Hooks had been a good blacksmith once, before his own demons caught up with him. Now Billy did most of the work while Tom drank away the profits. Rowan? Billy straightened, wiping soot from his face. He was tall for 14, all elbows and optimism that hadn't been beaten out of him yet. Heard you were dead. Heard wrong. She dismounted, kept her voice low. I need a favor, the kind you don't talk about. His eyes went wide. I ain't doing nothing illegal. It's not illegal, just private. She pulled out the folded letter Cole had written and $20. I need you to ride to Ridgeway. Find a man named Carson Webb at the cattle broker's office. Give him this letter, wait for a reply, come straight back. Billy stared at the money like it might bite him. That's more than my pa makes in 2 months. It's also dangerous. Men are looking for the person who wrote that letter. If they catch you carrying it, they might hurt you to find out where you got it. Then why would I do it? Because I'm asking. Because your father was friends with mine when it mattered. Because I'll give you another 20 when you come back safe. She held his eyes. And because sometimes doing the right thing is worth the risk. Billy looked at the letter, at the money, at her. Whatever he saw in her face made him nod. I'll do it. But if I die, I'm haunting you. Fair enough. She watched him saddle his father's old gelding, made sure he tucked the letter somewhere it wouldn't be found in a casual search. Before he rode out, she caught his arm. Billy, if anyone asks where you're going, I'm visiting my aunt in Ridgeway. She's sick and needs help. He grinned, gap-toothed. I ain't stupid, Rowan. Never said you were. Just be careful. He rode south. Rowan waited until he was out of sight, then turned Ember toward the general store. She needed supplies anyway, and buying them would make her visit look legitimate. The store was run by Margaret Chen, a widow who'd never liked Rowan much, but hated Silas more. She looked up when Rowan entered, expression carefully neutral. Didn't expect to see you again, Margaret said. I'm hard to get rid of. Rowan pulled out her list, short and practical. Flour, salt, coffee, if you've got it. And any news worth knowing? Margaret measured out the flour without comment, but her eyes kept flicking to the door like she expected trouble. There's men in town asking about a stranger. Rich-looking, they say. Injured, riding expensive horse. Heard that too. Haven't seen anyone matching. That's what I told them. Margaret wrapped the salt. Also told them you were crazy and dangerous and they should leave you alone. Don't know if they believed me. Probably not. Probably not, Margaret agreed. They're staying at the boarding house, 3 of them, paying good money to anyone who brings information. She paused. Your uncle visited them yesterday. Rowan's hand stilled on the counter. Silas talked to them? For about an hour. Came out looking pleased with himself. Margaret's voice dropped. Don't know what they discussed, but I know that look. He's making deals. He's always making deals. This one felt different, meaner. Margaret pushed the wrapped goods across the counter. Whatever you're mixed up in, girl, be smart about it. Silas is bad enough alone. If he's teaming up with outside money, I'll be careful. That's what your father used to say. Margaret's expression softened just slightly, right up until he wasn't. Rowan paid and left before the conversation could turn more uncomfortable. Outside, the sky had darkened, rain coming for sure. She tied the supplies to Ember's saddle and was about to mount when she heard her name. Rowan Mercer. She turned. Deputy Marshal Hendricks stood on the boarding house porch, coffee cup in hand. Not threatening exactly, but not friendly either. Marshal, she said, heard you had a visitor. Man named Cole Ashford. Hendricks took a sip of coffee. Funny thing, I looked into him after our last conversation. Turns out he's wanted for questioning in connection with fraud charges up north. Questioning isn't conviction? No. But it's interesting that he showed up at your place right after dodging an ambush. Makes a person wonder if you're harboring a criminal. Rowan kept her face blank. He hired me as a ranch hand, paid fair wages. That's all I know. Is he still at your place? Haven't seen him in 2 days. Figured his side healed enough to move on. Hendricks studied her like he was trying to read truth from lies. You know what I think? I think you're protecting him. I think he's still there, and I think you're in over your head with things you don't understand. I understand plenty. Do you? Do you understand that the men looking for Ashford aren't just hired guns? They're his family. His brother Marcus has legal claim to everything Cole stole when he fled, including any money he's using to buy your cooperation. Hendricks set down his cup. If you're helping him hide, you're not just breaking the law, you're making enemies with people who have long memories and deep pockets. My enemies already have deep pockets. Adding a few more won't change much. Stubborn. Just like your father. Hendricks sighed. I'm trying to help you, Miss Mercer, but I can't do that if you won't be straight with me. Help me by keeping those men away from my land. Help me by making sure Silas doesn't steal what's mine. Help me by doing your actual job instead of threatening girls who've done nothing wrong. Rowan mounted Ember. Or don't help me at all. I'm used to that too. She rode before he could respond, pushing Ember faster than was smart on the muddy road. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Hendricks knew more than he'd let on during their first meeting, which meant someone had been talking, which meant the net was tightening. The rain started an hour from home, cold, hard drops that turned the trail slick and made visibility almost nothing. Rowan pushed on anyway, urgency driving her harder than sense. She needed to get back, needed to warn Cole that Hendricks was asking questions, that Silas was making alliances, that the window for getting out was closing fast. She was so focused on speed that she almost missed the rider until he was on top of her. He came from the trees at a gallop, horse's shoulders slamming into Ember's flank. Rowan felt herself falling, had just enough time to kick free of the stirrups before she hit the ground hard. Pain exploded up her arm. The rifle flew from her grip, disappeared into the mud. She rolled, gasping, and looked up into Jacob's grinning face. Well, well, her cousin said. Look what the rain brought me. Rowan scrambled backward. Jacob dismounted, taking his time. Behind him, Thomas emerged from the same tree line, leading Ember by the reins. Awful wet day for a ride, Jacob continued. Makes a person wonder where you've been, what you've been doing. He pulled his pistol, not aiming but ready. Who you've been talking to. None of your business. See, that's where you're wrong. Everything you do is our business. That land you're squatting on, that's ours. The food you're eating, ours. Even that horse you stole. He gestured at Ember. Technically ours, since Pa's handling your father's debts. Your father murdered mine. Can't murder a drunk, Rowan. Can only help them along to where they were heading anyway. Jacob moved closer. Thomas circled right, cutting off escape routes. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us about your rich friend, where he is, what he's paying you, what he wants with our land. I don't know what you're talking about. Jacob backhanded her across the face. The blow snapped her head sideways, filled her mouth with blood. She stayed down, calculating distances. The rifle was 10 feet away, half buried in mud. Jacob's gun was drawn but not aimed. Thomas was still holding Ember, distracted. Don't lie to me, Jacob said. We know Ashford's at your place. We know you're helping him hide. What we don't know is why. He crouched down, grabbed her chin. So you're going to tell us, and then you're going to come back to town with us and explain to the marshal how you've been harboring a wanted man. Rowan spat blood in his face. Jacob recoiled, cursing. She lunged for the rifle, got her hand on the barrel. Thomas shouted. She swung the gun up, mud slick and heavy, finger finding the trigger. The shot went wide. Jacob kicked the rifle from her hands, then kicked her in the ribs. Same spot Silas had broken months ago. Pain whited out her vision. She curled around it, trying to breathe through the agony. Stupid bitch, Jacob panted. He wiped blood and spit from his face. You know what? Change of plans. You want to protect your rich boyfriend so bad? We'll just go get him ourselves. Let him watch what happens when you cross the Mercer family. He grabbed her hair, dragged her toward his horse. Rowan fought, but her ribs screamed and her vision kept blurring, and Jacob was stronger than he looked. He got her across his saddle, face down, and mounted behind her. Thomas, bring the other horse, Jacob called. Pa's going to want to see this. They rode. Every jolt sent fresh pain through Rowan's side. She tried to track direction, tried to plan, but the world had narrowed to breathing and not passing out. When they finally stopped, she didn't recognize the location at first. Then she saw the barn, the burned house, the graves on the hill. They'd brought her home. Jacob hauled her off the horse and threw her to the ground. She landed in the mud outside the barn, gasping. Through the rain, she could see Thomas tying up the horses, could see Jacob pulling his gun again, grinning like this was the best day of his life. Ashford, Jacob shouted toward the barn. I know you're in there. Come on out, or we start putting bullets in the girl. Silence. Rowan prayed Cole had heard them coming, had hidden in the cellar like she'd told him. Prayed he wouldn't be stupid enough to. The barn door opened. Cole stood in the frame, no gun visible, hands loose at his sides. Even from here, Rowan could see he was pale, moving careful, but his voice was steady when he spoke. Let her go. Or what? Jacob laughed. You gonna buy me off? That how you solve problems? Throw money at them? I'm asking nicely. Once. Cole took a step forward. Let her go and ride away. Whatever business you think you have with me, it doesn't involve her. Everything involves her. This is her land, her family, her mess. Jacob pressed the gun barrel against Rowan's head. She felt the cold metal against her temple, tasted copper and fear. So here's the deal, rich man. You leave. Right now. Walk away and never come back. Do that, and maybe I don't kill her. Cole's expression didn't change. You kill her, I'll hunt you across every mile of this territory. Money buys a lot of things, including men who know how to make deaths look accidental. Big talk from someone who's barely standing. Try me and find out. For a moment, nobody moved. Rain hammered down around them, turning the yard into a sea of mud. Thomas had his gun out now too, aimed at Cole, 2 against 1. 3 if you counted Rowan, and she could barely breathe, let alone fight. Then Jacob made his mistake. He took the gun off Rowan's head to aim at Cole. Just for a second, just to make his point. But a second was enough. Rowan swept his legs. Jacob went down hard, gun discharging into the air. She rolled, grabbed for the weapon. Thomas shouted, swinging his pistol toward her. Cole moved faster than a man with healing bullet wounds should be able to, covering the distance in 3 strides. His fist caught Thomas in the throat. Thomas made a choking sound and dropped. Jacob recovered, lunging for his gun. Rowan got there first. She came up with the pistol in both hands, aimed at her cousin's face from 3 feet away. Don't, she said. Jacob froze. Behind him, Thomas was on his knees, gagging. Cole stood over him, having somehow acquired Thomas's gun. He looked like he might collapse any second, but the weapon stayed level. Here's what's going to happen, Rowan said. Her voice shook, but the gun didn't. You're going to get on your horses and ride away. You're going to tell your father that if he sends anyone else here, I'll kill them. And then I'll come to town and kill him. Understand? You won't, Jacob said. But he didn't sound certain. You burned my family alive and left me to die. You really think I won't pull this trigger? She let him see the truth in her eyes. I've got nothing left to lose, Jacob. That makes me more dangerous than you'll ever be. Jacob stood slowly, hands up. He looked at Thomas, who'd managed to get to his feet, still clutching his throat. For a moment, Rowan thought Jacob might try something, might call her bluff. Then he seemed to remember the winter, remember the girl who'd crawled out of the rubble and refused to die. This isn't over, he said. It is for today. Now move. They moved, mounted up, turned their horses. Jacob paused at the edge of the yard. Silas is meeting with Ashford's brother tomorrow, he said. They're making a deal, something about combining resources to solve mutual problems. He smiled, ugly. That problem being you two. So enjoy your night, cousin. Might be your last one breathing free air. He rode off. Thomas followed. Rowan kept the gun up until they disappeared. Then her legs gave out. Cole caught her before she hit the ground. Easy, I've got you. Your stitches are probably torn, along with several other things. He helped her toward the barn. But we're both still alive. That's what counts. Inside, out of the rain, Rowan let herself shake. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her hollow and scared. Cole eased her onto a hay bale, then checked her ribs with gentle fingers. Bruised but not broken, he said. You'll hurt for a while, but you'll live. You shouldn't have come out. They could have killed you. They could have killed you first. That wasn't acceptable. He sat down beside her, breathing hard. What did they mean about Silas and Marcus meeting? Rowan told him about Hendricks, about the conversation in town, about Margaret's warning. Cole listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. They're consolidating, he said when she finished. Marcus wants me dead and Silas wants you gone. If they're working together, they can use legal means and illegal ones simultaneously. Frame us for crimes, seize the land through courts, then make sure we never live to contest it. So we're trapped. Not yet. But we're running out of time. Cole looked at her. Billy's already on his way to Ridgeway? Left this morning. Then we have maybe 24 hours before he gets back with help. Assuming he gets through. Assuming my people can mobilize that fast. Assuming Marcus doesn't have the roads watched. That's a lot of assuming. It is. Cole was quiet for a moment. There's another option. Which is? I leave. Tonight. Lead Marcus's men away from here. They want me, not you. Once I'm gone, Silas loses his ally, and you can fight your land battle without getting caught in the middle of mine." Rowan stared at him. "You can barely walk. You'd make it maybe 10 miles before you collapsed." "Then I'd make it 10 miles away from you. That's 10 miles of safety you wouldn't have with me here." "That's 10 miles closer to dying alone in a ditch. Better me than you." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she meant. "Why does it matter? You don't owe me anything. You paid your debt when you stood up to Hendricks. Everything after that is extra." Cole met her eyes. "You really don't see it, do you?" "See what?" "You saved my life, then you gave me a reason to value it again." His voice went quiet. "I've spent 2 years running from my brother, hiding from the mess he made of my reputation, trying to rebuild something that matters. But it always felt like going through motions, like building a house on land that wasn't mine. Then I met you." "Cole, you're 17 and you survived things that would have broken most grown men. You're standing on burned ground with no help and no hope, and you're still fighting, still refusing to let them win. That's—" He stopped, searching for words. "That's what I want to build toward. Not another ranch, not more money, but that kind of courage, that kind of refusal to quit." Rowan didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to argue, to point out she wasn't courageous, just stubborn, that refusing to quit wasn't noble when you were too angry to know better. But the way Cole looked at her made the words stick in her throat. "If you leave, they win," she said finally. "Both of them. Marcus gets you dead and Silas gets my land. Is that what you want?" "I want you safe." "I've never been safe. Don't start caring about that now." She stood, ignoring the pain in her ribs. "We made a deal. You help me fight for this land. I help keep you alive long enough to see it through. That deal doesn't end just because things got harder." "Rowan, no. Listen to me." She grabbed his shoulder, made him look at her. "I've been alone for months, fighting alone, surviving alone, expecting to die alone. Then you showed up bleeding on my doorstep, and suddenly I'm not alone anymore? You think I'm letting that go without a fight? You think I'm going to watch you ride off to die just so I can have a slightly better chance at keeping land that won't mean anything without someone to share it with?" Cole went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want you to leave. I'm saying we're better together than apart. I'm saying—" She stopped, face hot. "I'm saying I care what happens to you, all right? And I'm done pretending I don't." The silence stretched. Rain drummed on the roof. Somewhere outside, Ember whinnied softly. Then Cole smiled. Not his usual careful expression, but something genuine and almost vulnerable. "Well," he said, "that complicates things." "Why?" "Because now I have another reason to stay alive." He reached up, touched her face where Jacob had hit her. His fingers were gentle. "And another thing worth fighting for." Rowan's heart was doing something strange in her chest. Something that felt dangerous and necessary at the same time. She should pull away. Should remember that caring about people got you hurt. Should know better than to trust a rich man with empty eyes who'd shown up wounded and might leave the same way. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. "We need a plan," she said, but her voice came out wrong, too soft. "We do," Cole agreed. He didn't move his hand. "A real one. Something that doesn't end with both of us dead." Definitely that. Neither of them moved. The rain kept falling. The world outside the barn kept turning. And for just a moment, Rowan let herself imagine a future where this worked, where the land was hers and Cole stayed, and they built something together that the frontier couldn't take away. Then a gunshot cracked across the valley, distant but unmistakable. They broke apart. Rowan grabbed the rifle. Cole reached for his pistol. They moved to the barn door, peering out into the rain-soaked dusk. Nothing. No riders. No movement. Just the empty yard and the darkening sky. "Probably hunters," Rowan said. "Probably," Cole echoed. But he didn't sound convinced. They stayed alert through the evening, taking turns on watch. When full dark fell, Rowan made a cold dinner from the supplies she'd bought. They ate in silence, both listening for sounds that didn't belong. Around midnight, Cole finally spoke. "Tell me about Black Hollow." Rowan looked up from cleaning the rifle. "What about it?" "The town where your uncle conducts business. You mentioned it once. Gambling, you said." Gambling, drinking, worse things. It's where men go when they want to pretend they're not breaking laws. She set down the cleaning rod. Why? Because that's where the answer is, not here, not hiding and waiting for them to come to us. Cole's eyes were hard. Your uncle doesn't just want your land, he wants you erased, completely. No witnesses, no complications, and my brother wants the same for me. But what they both really want is control, power, the appearance of legitimacy. So we take that away from them, publicly, where they can't hide behind bought sheriffs and legal loopholes. He leaned forward. We go to Black Hollow. We force the confrontation on our terms, in front of people who'll remember what they see. We make it impossible for them to bury this quietly. Rowan felt something cold settle in her gut. That's suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way to end this without spending the rest of our lives running. Cole held her gaze. You said you wanted justice witnessed, not hidden. This is how we do that. By walking into a town controlled by my uncle and your brother? By starting a fight we can't win? By making them fight in daylight instead of shadows? By forcing them to show who they really are? He paused. I know it's dangerous. I know the odds are bad. But what's the alternative? Wait here until they gather enough men to overwhelm us? Run and let them claim victory? At least this way we get to choose the battlefield. Rowan wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways this could go wrong. But she thought about Jacob's gun against her head, about Silas's face as he threw the lamp, about months of being hunted on her own land. When? She asked. Tomorrow night, before Marcus and Silas finalize whatever deal they're making. We ride to Black Hollow, we find your uncle, and we end this. How? Cole's expression went hard. However we have to. They finalize details through the small hours. Cole would use his remaining money to hire witnesses, townspeople, drifters, anyone who could be paid to watch and remember. Rowan would handle Silas directly, get him to confess in front of enough people that even bought law couldn't cover it up. It was a terrible plan, full of holes and assumptions and faith in the basic decency of frontier justice that neither of them actually believed in. But it was a plan, and planning felt better than waiting. Just before dawn, exhausted and wired, Rowan finally asked the question that had been building all night. What happens after? If we somehow survive this? Cole looked at her. In the dim light, his face was all shadows and angles. That depends. On what? On whether you still want a partner when this is over, or if you'd rather I keep my promise and leave once the dust settles. Rowan thought about the empty barn, the silent meals, the long nights with only ghosts for company. Thought about Cole working beside her, arguing with her, bleeding for her. Thought about the way her heart had lurched when he'd stepped out to face Jacob's gun. Ask me again when we're not about to die, she said. Cole smiled. Fair enough. They rested in shifts until sunrise. When morning came gray and cold, Rowan checked the trail for Billy. No sign yet. Too early. He wouldn't be back until afternoon at the earliest, assuming everything had gone right. By noon, the waiting had stretched Rowan's nerves to breaking. She paced the barn, checked the rifles, counted their ammunition. 12 rounds for her rifle, 8 for Cole's pistol. Not enough for a sustained fight, but maybe enough for what they needed. Cole watched her pace. We could still wait for Billy's response. See if my people can send help. And if they can't? If Marcus has them blocked? Then we've wasted time we don't have. Rowan stopped, faced him. You said it yourself. We're running out of options. At least your plan gives us a chance. A very small chance. Better than no chance. He nodded slowly. Then we ride at dusk. Give ourselves darkness to approach the town. The afternoon crawled by. Rowan tried to rest, but her mind kept spinning through scenarios. Cole cleaned weapons with methodical focus. Neither of them talked much. There wasn't much left to say. Around 3 o'clock, Rowan heard hoofbeats. She grabbed the rifle, moved to the door. A single rider, coming fast from the south. For a moment, hope surged. Billy, back early with good news. Then she recognized the horse. Not Billy's father's gelding. Something better bred, fresher. The rider pulled up in the yard. Young, well-dressed, carrying himself with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. He looked between Rowan and Cole with cool assessment. Cole Ashford? Who's asking? The young man dismounted, pulled an envelope from his coat. I'm Daniel Webb. My father sent me with a message. He said it was urgent. He handed the envelope to Cole. Also said to tell you that Marcus has men watching every road north. If you're planning to run, you won't make it 10 miles. Cole opened the envelope, scanned the contents. His expression darkened. "What is it?" Rowan asked. "Carson says Marcus has legal papers declaring me incompetent to manage my own affairs. Something about mental instability following the accusations of fraud. He's petitioning the territorial court to seize all my assets and appoint himself guardian." Cole looked up. "It's a lie, but a well-crafted one. If he succeeds, everything I own transfers to him legally. No violence needed. Can he do that? With enough bought testimony and friendly judges?" "Yes." Cole handed her the letter. "Carson also says there's a price on my head. Not official, but word spreading. $200 to anyone who delivers me to Marcus alive." Daniel cleared his throat. "My father also sent these." He pulled a smaller bundle from his saddlebag. "Ammunition, medical supplies, and $300. He said to tell you that you helped him once when no one else would. This is him returning the favor." Cole took the bundle, expression complicated. "Tell your father I'm grateful, and that I'll pay him back if I survive this." "He said you'd say that. Also said not to bother. Just survive." Daniel mounted up. "He also said to tell you that Black Hollow's mayor is up for election next month. There's people there who'd like to see Silas Mercer's influence broken. If you were to make enough noise, they might actually listen." He rode off before they could respond. Rowan looked at Cole. "People who want Silas gone," she said slowly. "That changes things. It gives us potential allies, if we can reach them." Cole counted the money Carson had sent. "This is enough to hire a dozen witnesses, maybe more if we're smart about it. Or enough to bribe our way out if everything goes wrong." "That too." They looked at each other. The plan was still terrible, still likely to get them killed, but now it had the faintest edge of possibility. "Tonight," Rowan said. "We leave tonight." "Tonight," Cole agreed. They spent the remaining hours preparing, loaded guns, packed supplies, wrote letters they hoped no one would ever have to read. As the sun began setting, Rowan walked to the graves on the hill one last time. Her mother's stone was weathered but still readable. Her baby brother's was smaller, painted with stars that were fading now. Her father's was newest, a simple cross Rowan had hammered together from barnwood. "I'm going to finish it," she said to them, to the wind, to herself. "One way or another, I'm ending this. If I don't come back..." She stopped. Started again. "If I don't come back, I want you to know I tried. I fought. I didn't give up." The wind didn't answer. The graves stayed silent. But as she walked back down the hill, Rowan felt lighter. Like saying the words had made them real. Like commitment had weight that fear couldn't quite match. Cole was waiting by the barn, both horses saddled. He'd found his good coat, cleaned the blood from it. Looked almost like the wealthy cattle baron who'd ridden up to her fence bleeding and desperate. Except his eyes. Those were different now, harder, more certain. "Ready?" he asked. Rowan swung into the saddle, felt embers shift beneath her, checked her rifle one last time. "No, but we're going anyway." "That's the spirit." They rode out together as darkness fell, leaving the burned ranch behind. Ahead, Black Hollow waited, and with it, whatever ending this story was going to have. Black Hollow earned its name honestly. The town sat in a depression between two ridges, catching shadows early and holding them late. Even at midday, the place had a sunken quality, like something slowly being swallowed by the earth. At night, riding in from the east, it looked like a collection of dim lights floating in a pool of darkness. Rowan and Cole stopped on the ridge overlooking the town. Below, they could make out the main street, the saloon with its bright windows, the smaller buildings clustered around it like children seeking warmth. "That's where Silas does his business," Rowan said, pointing to the largest structure. "The Red Crown. He owns it through proxies, runs games in the back room. Anything you want to buy or sell in this valley, you do it there." Cole studied the layout with the eye of someone who'd planned operations before. "How many entrances?" "Front door, side door to the alley, back door to the stable yard. Windows on the second floor, but they're small and high." She paused. "There's also a root cellar with an outside entrance. My father used it once to avoid some men who were looking for him. Exits are good. Means we're not trapped." Cole shifted in his saddle. His side was bothering him. She could tell by the careful way he moved. What about Law? Town constable named Pike. Silas owns him completely. If shooting starts, he'll side with whoever's paying better. Then we make sure we're paying better. Cole patted his saddlebag where Carson's money rested. First stop is finding those people Daniel mentioned, the ones who want Silas gone. They rode down carefully, leaving the horses at a livery on the edge of town. The stable hand was an old man with one milky eye who took their coins without comment. When Cole asked about a place to stay, the man jerked his thumb toward a boarding house across the street. Mrs. Garrett runs a clean place. Keeps her nose out of business, that ain't hers. We need more than that, Rowan said. We need someone who knows this town. Someone who might want to help change how things run around here. The stable hand's good eye studied her. You're Mercer's niece, the one who survived the fire. I'm the one his sons tried to kill, if that's what you mean. Heard about that too. The old man spat into the straw. Also heard Silas is meeting with some outside men tonight. Big money types. They got the whole back room at the Red Crown reserved. Cole and Rowan exchanged glances. Marcus was here. Had to be. These outside men, Cole said carefully. They have a name? One of them's called Ashford. Marcus Ashford. Got that kind of voice makes you want to check your pockets after he's done talking. The stable hand paused. You wouldn't be Cole Ashford, would you? His brother what got pushed out? Cole's hand moved toward his gun. The old man held up both hands, shaking his head. Easy. I ain't looking for bounty money, just confirming what I already guessed. He lowered his voice. You want people who hate Silas? Try the boarding house. Mrs. Garrett's husband was sheriff before Pike. Died under suspicious circumstances right after he started investigating Silas's gambling operation. She's got no love for that man. Anyone else? Rowan asked. Rowan at half the town, if they had the courage. But courage don't pay bills, and Silas controls most of the paying work around here. The stable hand shrugged. You're planning something stupid. I can see it on your faces. Just try to keep the horses out of it. They didn't ask for this fight. They left him and crossed to the boarding house. It was a narrow building, 3 stories, paint peeling, but windows clean. A sign in faded letters read Garrett House, rooms by night or week. The woman who answered their knock was somewhere past 50, with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She looked at Rowan, then at Cole, then back at Rowan. You're either very brave or very stupid coming here tonight. Probably both, Rowan admitted. We need a room and information. Information costs extra. We can pay. Mrs. Garrett studied them a moment longer, then stepped aside. Come in, and don't track mud on my floors. Inside, the boarding house was simple but well kept. Mrs. Garrett led them to a back room on the first floor, small but clean, with a window overlooking the alley. She named a price that was fair, and Cole paid it without haggling. Now, Mrs. Garrett said, pocketing the coins, what kind of information are you looking for? The kind that helps us expose Silas Mercer for what he is, Cole said. In front of enough witnesses that even bought law can't cover it up. Mrs. Garrett's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. That's ambitious, also dangerous. We know. Do you? Because Silas has been running this town for 5 years, killed or drove out everyone who stood against him. My husband was the last one who tried. Her voice went flat. They found him in the river, called it an accident, but Frank was a strong swimmer and he had a bullet hole in his back. I'm sorry, Rowan said quietly. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Action does. Mrs. Garrett moved to the window, looked out at the street. There's a town meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Mayor's supposed to address some complaints about gambling licenses. Half the merchants will be there, complaining but too scared to do anything. If something were to happen tonight that changed the power structure, they might actually stand up, Cole finished. Maybe, if they believed things could actually change. She turned back to them. What are you planning? To make Silas confess to murder and arson in front of witnesses, Rowan said, and to expose Marcus Ashford's illegal attempts to seize his brother's assets through fraud. Mrs. Garrett let out a low whistle. You don't think small, do you? Small hasn't been working out. Fair point. Mrs. Garrett was quiet for a moment, thinking. The Red Crown will be packed tonight. Marcus and Silas have been buying drinks for the whole saloon, putting on a show of wealth and power. If you want witnesses, you'll have them. Question is whether you can control the situation once it starts. We can't, Cole admitted. But we can try to stack the odds. How many people in this town would actually help if they thought it might work? Help how? Fight, testify, hide you when it goes bad? Any of those, Mrs. Garrett considered. Maybe a dozen. 2 dozen if you count the ones who'd help quietly, but you'd need to give them reason to believe. Show them that Silas can actually fall. That's the plan. Then you'll need this. She went to a cabinet, pulled out a leather folder. Inside were papers, documents, letters. Frank's investigation notes. Everything he found on Silas before he died. Forged land claims, rigged games, payments to Pike. Couldn't use it because the territorial judge was bought too. But if you had it, along with a confession and enough witnesses, Rowan took the folder carefully. Why are you giving this to us? Because Frank would have wanted someone to finish what he started. And because I'm tired of watching bad men win. Mrs. Garrett's voice was hard. You get Silas to confess. You make it public. You survive the night. I'll make sure every merchant and voter in this town knows what happened. Force them to choose sides when the dust settles. That's a lot of ifs, Cole said. It is, but it's more chance than anyone's had in 5 years. They spent the next hour planning. Mrs. Garrett knew the Red Crown's layout intimately. Her husband had inspected it multiple times during his investigation. She drew them a rough map, marking exits and blind spots. Told them when the crowd would be thickest, when Silas usually held his private meetings. Marcus and his men are staying upstairs, she said. Rooms 3 and 4. Silas keeps the back room for business. That's where they'll be tonight, finalizing whatever deal they're making. How many men does Marcus have with him? Cole asked. 4 that I've seen, plus Silas's 2 sons and whatever local muscle he can call on. She looked at them seriously. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and even if everything goes perfectly, there's a good chance you don't walk out of there alive. We know, Rowan said, just making sure. Mrs. Garrett folded the map. There's a boy works at the Red Crown, Cal Reed, 14, orphaned, survives on whatever scraps Silas throws him. He hates that place but has nowhere else to go. If you could get him out before things start, we'll try, Cole said. They left the boarding house as full dark settled over Black Hollow. The streets were busy now, men heading to the saloon or the gambling halls, women closing up shops. Nobody paid much attention to Rowan and Cole, just 2 more people in a town that saw plenty of strangers. The Red Crown sat in the center of town, a 2-story building with a wide porch and windows that spilled yellow light into the street. Piano music drifted out, along with laughter and the clink of glasses. Rowan had been here once, years ago, when her father had brought her to collect a debt. She remembered thinking it felt dangerous even then, like walking into an animal's den. Now she was walking in deliberately. They entered through the front door. The main room was packed, cowboys and miners, merchants and gamblers, all crowding around tables or bellying up to the bar. The air was thick with smoke and sweat and whiskey fumes. Nobody looked at them twice. Rowan spotted Cal immediately. He was thin, dark-haired, carrying drinks from the bar to tables with the careful attention of someone who knew spilling meant punishment. When he passed close, Rowan caught his arm. We need to talk, somewhere private. Cal's eyes went wide. I don't know you. Mrs. Garrett sent us. We're here to help. Help with what? Getting you out of here before things get bad. She let go of his arm. There's a room at the boarding house waiting for you, but you need to leave now before... A voice cut across the room, loud and familiar. Well, well, look what crawled in from the cold. Rowan turned. Silas stood at the bottom of the stairs, dressed in his best clothes, smile wide and poisonous. Behind him, Jacob and Thomas. And behind them, 4 men Rowan didn't recognize but who had Marcus's cold eyes. The saloon went quiet. Even the piano player stopped. Silas descended the stairs slowly, making a show of it. My dear niece, and the mysterious Mr. Ashford, I was hoping you'd accept our invitation. We didn't get an invitation, Cole said. Didn't you? That's unfortunate, because my associate and I have been very eager to speak with you both. Silas gestured toward the stairs. At the top, a man appeared who could only be Marcus Ashford. He looked like Cole would in 10 years if bitterness had carved away everything decent. Same height, same build, but where Cole's eyes showed warmth beneath the calculation, Marcus's showed only cold assessment. He descended with the confidence of someone used to owning every room he entered. "Little brother," Marcus said, "you've led me on quite a chase." "You were always better at chasing than building," Cole replied. His hand was near his gun, but not touching it. "Easier to steal than create. I prefer to think of it as consolidating family assets. Speaking of which," Marcus pulled papers from his coat. "I have a territorial judge's signature declaring you unfit to manage your own affairs. Everything you own is now in trust. Under my management, naturally." "Those papers are forgeries." "Prove it," Marcus smiled. "Oh wait, you can't. Because you're a wanted man. Fraud, embezzlement, theft. The charges are quite detailed. Even if you could reach a court, your word against documented evidence?" He shook his head. "You should have stayed hidden, Cole. Coming here was a mistake." "Maybe. Or maybe it was the only way to end this." Cole's voice carried across the silent room. "You've been hunting me for 2 years, spreading lies, buying officials, trying to erase me completely. Why? Because I wouldn't roll over and let you steal what our father built? Our father was a fool who split his legacy instead of giving it to the son who deserved it." Marcus's voice hardened. "I spent years cleaning up his mistakes, building real power. Then he dies, and suddenly you're entitled to half? You, who never wanted any of this, who spent more time working cattle than courting investors? Because cattle don't lie. Investors do. Or at least yours did when you paid them to claim I was embezzling." The crowd was listening now, really listening. Rowan could see faces turning, interest kindling. This was good. Public confrontation, witnesses everywhere. Exactly what they needed. Silas must have sensed it too because he interrupted. "Fascinating as this family drama is, I believe we had other business to discuss." He looked at Rowan. "My niece seems to think I murdered her father, burned down their ranch and left her for dead. Quite serious accusations." "Not accusations," Rowan said. "Facts. You wanted the land. My father's debt gave you an excuse to take it, so you killed him and tried to kill me. Can you prove that? I was there. I survived. That's proof enough." Silas laughed. It sounded genuine, which made it worse. The word of a traumatized girl against established records, legal debts, documented fire, tragic accident. He spread his hands to the crowd. "I tried to help her, offered her a home, but she's been unstable since her family died, making wild claims, stealing property, harboring wanted criminals." He gestured at Cole. "Now she brings him here, to my establishment, and expects what? Sympathy?" "I expect justice," Rowan said. "I expect people to see you for what you are." "And what am I, dear niece?" "A murderer, a thief, a coward who hides behind bought law and forged papers." The slap came fast. Silas's palm cracked across her face hard enough to snap her head sideways. The crowd gasped. Cole moved, hand going for his gun, but Marcus's men already had theirs drawn. "Don't," Marcus said quietly. 4 guns against 1. Bad odds, even for you. Cole froze. Rowan touched her face, felt blood at the corner of her mouth. Silas grabbed her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "You want to make accusations?" His voice was low now, meant only for her. "Fine. Make them. See how far it gets you without proof, without witnesses, without anything but anger and spite." "I have proof." Rowan pulled Frank Garrett's folder from her coat with her free hand. "Your former sheriff's investigation notes. Every forged claim, every rigged game, every payment to Pike. All documented." Silas's expression went flat. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter? It exists. And tomorrow everyone in this town will know what's in it. Tomorrow, you'll be dead." He said it casually, like commenting on the weather. The crowd heard it anyway. A ripple went through the room. Shock, fear, interest. "You just confessed," Cole said, "in front of 50 witnesses." "I confessed to nothing. I made an observation about a dangerous girl in over her head." Silas smiled. "Who here actually heard me threaten her? Anyone?" Silence. The crowd looked away. Nobody wanted to be the one who spoke up. "That's what I thought." Silas turned to Pike, who'd appeared near the door with 2 deputies. "Constable, this girl is wanted for theft and harboring a fugitive. I'd like her arrested." Pike moved forward, hand on his gun. "Miss Mercer, you need to come with me." "On what charges?" "Theft of property belonging to Carson Winters, harboring a wanted criminal, disturbing the peace. Pike's voice was bored, reciting a script. You can come quiet or loud. Your choice. Rowan looked around the room, at the crowd that wouldn't meet her eyes, at Silas's smug expression, at Marcus's cold calculation, at Cole, who was outnumbered and outgunned and looked like he was trying to figure out a plan that didn't end with both of them dead. This was the moment, the choice. Go quietly and let them bury this. Or fight and probably die, but at least die trying. She made her decision. Cal, she said loudly, run, now. The boy didn't hesitate. He dropped his tray and bolted for the back door. Pike shouted, started to follow. Rowan threw herself at the constable, not trying to win, just trying to create chaos. Her shoulder hit Pike's chest. They went down in a tangle of limbs. Someone screamed. The crowd surged backward, trying to avoid the violence. In the confusion, Cole drew his gun. Nobody move! 4 guns swung toward him. Marcus's men, ready to fire. For a frozen moment, everyone was balanced on the edge of killing. Then a voice from the doorway. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Everyone turned. Standing in the entrance was Deputy Marshal Hendricks, flanked by 2 federal marshals Rowan didn't recognize. All 3 had rifles leveled at the room. This is a federal matter now, Hendricks said. Everyone puts their guns down slow. Including you, Marcus. This is outside your jurisdiction, Marcus said. Fraud across territorial lines makes it federal, so does murder. Hendricks stepped into the room. We've been investigating you for 6 months, Mr. Ashford, following the money, tracking the forged documents. Your brother's accusations gave us the opening we needed to move. He looked at Silas. Same goes for you, Mercer. Federal fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, extortion. We've got witnesses in 3 territories ready to testify. Silas's face went purple. You can't prove... We can, actually. See, your mistake was getting greedy. You didn't just steal from one family. You stole from dozens, built a whole operation on it. And eventually, enough people got angry enough to talk. Hendricks pulled out handcuffs. Marcus Ashford, Silas Mercer, you're both under arrest. Anyone wants to object, you're welcome to explain it to a federal judge. The room erupted. Marcus's men backed toward the stairs. Jacob and Thomas looked at each other, then at their father, trying to decide if this was worth dying for. Silas lunged for Rowan, face twisted with rage. Cole's gun cracked. The bullet took Silas in the shoulder, spun him around. He fell, clutching the wound, screaming. Pike tried to draw his weapon. One of Hendricks' marshals put him on the ground with a rifle butt to the head. Then everyone was moving. Marcus's men fired. The crowd stampeded for exits. Glass shattered as someone dove through a window. Rowan rolled away from Silas, grabbed Pike's dropped pistol, came up shooting at shadows and muzzle flashes. Cole moved to her side, gun barking. One of Marcus's men went down. Another took cover behind the bar. The piano exploded in splinters as someone's shot went wild. Upstairs, Hendricks shouted. They're heading for the rooms. Marcus and his remaining men were retreating up the stairs, firing down at the marshals. Hendricks's people returned fire, methodical and professional. Jacob appeared on the second-floor landing with a shotgun. The blast tore chunks out of the wall near Rowan's head. She returned fire, missed. Cole's shot didn't, caught Jacob in the leg. He went down screaming, dropping the shotgun. Thomas dragged him back into one of the rooms. They're going to barricade, Cole said. We need to end this before... The explosion cut him off. The back wall of the saloon blew inward, wood and brick and flame. Rowan felt the shockwave, felt heat wash over her. Through the smoke and debris, figures moved. More men, at least a dozen, pouring in through the hole. Not marshals, not Marcus's people. Someone else entirely. The lead figure was a woman in her 40s, dressed in trail leathers, carrying a rifle like she knew how to use it. She surveyed the chaos with sharp eyes, then spotted Rowan. You're Mercer's girl? Rowan nodded, too stunned to speak. May Vesper. I run the Northern Claims. The woman gestured to her crew. Carson Webb sent word you might need help. Figured we owed Cole Ashford a favor anyway. Where's Marcus? Upstairs, barricaded. Not for long. May turned to her people. Smoke them out. Non-lethal if possible, but I'm not picky. Her crew moved like they'd done this before. Efficient, coordinated, ruthless. 2 of them produced smoke bombs that they lobbed up the stairs. Within seconds, thick gray smoke was billowing from the second floor. Coughing, shouting, then Marcus's men stumbling down, hands up, gagging. Hendrix's marshals took them into custody. May's people cleared the rest of the rooms, dragging out Jacob and Thomas, and 3 more of Silas's hired guns. The shooting stopped. The smoke began to clear. In the wreckage of the Red Crown, surrounded by broken glass and splintered wood and groaning prisoners, Rowan finally let herself believe it was over. Cole appeared at her side, soot-streaked and bleeding from a cut on his temple. "You all right?" "I think so. You?" "Stitches are definitely torn, but I'm alive to complain about it, so that's something." He looked around at the destruction. "This didn't go anything like we planned." "No, it went better." Hendrix approached, holstering his weapon. "Miss Mercer, Mr. Ashford, we need statements. All of this," he gestured at the chaos, "needs to be documented for the federal prosecutor." "What about Silas?" Rowan looked to where her uncle sat, holding his wounded shoulder, face gray with pain and fury. "What about justice?" "He'll stand trial. So will Marcus. So will everyone involved." Hendrix met her eyes. "I know it's not the immediate satisfaction you wanted, but it's real justice. Federal courts, real judges, no bought officials. They'll answer for what they did." "And my land?" "That's civil court. But with Silas's fraud exposed and his claims invalidated, you should be able to reclaim it without much trouble." He paused. "I'm sorry I didn't move faster. We had to build a case that would stick." "You moved fast enough when it mattered." Rowan looked at Cole. "We both did." May Vesper joined them, reloading her rifle with casual efficiency. "Cole Ashford, been a while." "May, thanks for the cavalry charge." "Carson said you were in trouble. Figured I'd return the favor from that business in Red Creek." She looked at Rowan. "You the one who patched him up when he got shot?" "That was me." "Good work keeping him alive. He's one of the few rich men worth the trouble." May slung her rifle over her shoulder. "You two planning to rebuild that ranch I heard about?" "That's the plan," Cole said. "Good. Territory needs more people willing to stand up to bullies. You ever need help, you know where to find me." She tipped her hat and walked off to supervise her crew's departure. The next hours blurred together. Statements given, wounds tended. The wreckage of the Red Crown slowly cleared. Silas and Marcus were loaded into a prison wagon along with their men. As they were let out, Silas caught Rowan's eyes. "This isn't over," he said. "Even in prison, I have reach." "You have nothing." Rowan's voice was flat. "You took everything from me. My family, my home, years of my life, but I'm still standing, and you're in chains. So, no, Uncle. This is over. You just haven't figured that out yet." She turned away before he could respond. Didn't watch as the wagon rolled off toward the territorial prison. Didn't care what happened to him next. Cole found her sitting on the boarding house steps as dawn broke. The sky was turning pink and gold, washing away the night's violence with clean light. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Don't want to. Afraid I'll wake up and this will all be a dream." She looked at him. "Is it real? Are they actually gone?" "They're gone. Locked up, facing federal charges. Hendrix says the prosecutor is confident of conviction." Cole sat beside her, moving stiff. "We did it, Rowan. We actually did it. We almost died doing it." "But we didn't. That counts for something." They sat in silence for a while, watching the town wake up. People emerged cautiously, assessing damage, spreading news. The Red Crown was a wreck, but everything else had survived. Already Rowan could hear hammering as someone started repairs. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we go back to your ranch. File the paperwork to reclaim your land. Start rebuilding." Cole paused. "That is if you still want a partner." Rowan thought about the question he'd asked before the fight, about whether she wanted him to stay or leave once the dust settled. She thought about the empty barn, the silent nights, the long winter she'd survived alone. "I want a partner," she said. "Not someone to rescue me or take over. A real partner. Someone who works beside me, not for me. I can do that. And I want it in writing. Legal partnership, equal shares, both our names on everything." Cole smiled. "I wouldn't have it any other way." "Then yes. Stay. Help me build something that lasts." They shook on it there on the boarding house steps as the sun rose over Black Hollow. It wasn't romantic. Wasn't a perfect moment. They were both exhausted and hurt and probably going to argue about 1,000 details once they started actually working together. But it was real. And real was better than any dream Rowan could have imagined. Mrs. Garrett appeared with coffee and news. Town meeting's been moved up to this afternoon. People want to talk about new leadership, new laws, cleaning up the corruption. They're asking if you'll speak. Rowan looked at Cole. He shrugged. Your town, your choice. Our town now, she corrected. If we're partners, we're in this together. She turned to Mrs. Garrett. Tell them we'll be there. The meeting was held in the schoolhouse, packed with people who'd been too scared to speak up before. Now, with Silas gone and federal law backing them, courage found its voice. They elected a new constable, established new gambling rules, started talking about incorporation and real government. When Rowan stood to speak, she kept it simple. Told them what Silas had done to her family, what Cole had survived from his brother, how corruption had nearly destroyed them both, and how, working together, with people like Mae Vesper and Mrs. Garrett and even Hendricks, they'd found a way to fight back that actually worked. I'm not saying it'll be easy, she finished. Building something real never is. But it's possible. We proved that. Now we have to keep proving it, every day, until this territory is the kind of place where justice means something and hard work matters more than bought influence. The applause was tentative at first, then growing. Not everyone believed. Not everyone would help. But enough did. Enough to matter. That evening, riding back toward the ranch with Cole beside her and dawn approaching, Rowan felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the dangerous kind that made you vulnerable, but the earned kind. The kind built on action and proof and people standing together. The ranch would still be a wreck when they got there. The barn would still need work. The house would still need rebuilding. Winter would still come and bring its own challenges. But this time, she wouldn't face it alone. This time she had a partner, had allies, had a future that looked like more than just survival. As they crested the final ridge and saw the burned land spread below them in the pre-dawn light, Cole spoke quietly. We're going to need help, real help. Mae's crew for the heavy work, Carson for supplies and contacts, maybe even hire some hands once we get the operation running. That'll take money. I still have some. Not as much as before Marcus got his hands on my assets, but enough to start. And your land is valuable once it's worked properly. He looked at her. We can do this. Build something that matters. I know we can, Rowan urged Ember forward. Let's go home. They rode down together as the sun rose, two people who'd survived the worst the frontier could throw at them and came out the other side not broken, but stronger. The land waited, hard and unforgiving as always, but no longer empty. No longer cursed, just waiting for someone stubborn enough to make it bloom. The ranch looked worse in full daylight than it had in Rowan's memory. Maybe because hope made you see things clearer, stripped away the protective fog of survival mode. The house was still just charred beams and a chimney. The barn still sagged on one side where winter had tested its joints. The fields were overgrown with scrub that would take months to clear. Cole dismounted slowly, favoring his injured side. He walked the perimeter in silence while Rowan tended to the horses. When he came back, his expression was thoughtful rather than discouraged. It's bad, he said, but I've seen worse rebuilt into something functional. Functional isn't exactly inspiring. Functional is where everything good starts. You build functional first, then you build beautiful. He pulled out a notebook, started sketching. House goes back where it was, but bigger. 2 stories, proper foundation. Barn needs to be torn down and started fresh. That lean is only going to get worse. We'll need a bunkhouse if we're hiring hands, storage buildings for equipment and feed, a proper well instead of hauling from the creek. Rowan watched him plan, pencil moving fast across paper. It was strange seeing her land through his eyes, not as a graveyard of what was lost, but as potential for what could be built. That's going to cost more than you have, she said. Initial investment, yes, but Carson's already agreed to extend credit on supplies. Mae's crew will work for fair wages plus a percentage of first-year profits. And once we file the official claim and get the federal paperwork through, we can leverage the land value for additional loans. He looked up from his notebook. It won't be fast, but it's possible. How long? How? 2 years to get fully operational. Maybe 3 to turn actual profit. He saw her expression. I know that sounds like forever, but building something that lasts takes time. The question is whether you're willing to put in that time. Rowan thought about the winter she'd survived alone, about the months of just trying to make it to tomorrow. 2 years of actual building instead of barely surviving sounded almost easy by comparison. "I'm willing," she said, "as long as we're clear that this is partnership, not charity. Equal shares, equal say, both names on the deed. We already agreed." Cole held out his hand. "Partners?" "Partners." They shook on it again, making it real. Then they got to work. The first week was demolition. May's crew arrived 3 days after they got back, 8 men and 2 women who knew their way around construction. Together they tore down what was too damaged to save, sorted salvageable lumber from kindling, cleared the foundation where the new house would go. Cal Reed showed up on the 4th day, riding a borrowed mule and carrying everything he owned in a grain sack. "Mrs. Garrett said you might need help," the boy said. He looked nervous, like he expected to be turned away. "I'm not afraid of hard work, and I got nowhere else to go." Rowan and Cole exchanged glances. They'd talked about hiring eventually, but a 14-year-old orphan wasn't exactly what they'd planned. "You know anything about ranching?" Cole asked. "No, sir, but I learn fast and I don't eat much." "Everyone eats," Rowan said. "That's not negotiable. You work here, you get fed proper, also get paid. Also get a place to sleep that isn't a saloon storage room." Cal's eyes went wide. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. But the work is hard and the hours are long and we can't afford passengers. You pull your weight or you're gone. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. Makes me feel old. Just Rowan." She looked at Cole. "He can bunk in the barn until we get the bunkhouse built." "Works for me." Cole turned to Cal. "You ever handle livestock?" "Chickens, mostly, and I mucked stalls at the livery sometimes." "Then you start with the horses. Rowan will show you what needs doing." Cal practically vibrated with eagerness. As Rowan led him toward where Ember was picketed, she heard him whisper, "I got a job, a real job." Something in her chest hurt. She remembered being 14 after her mother died, desperate to be useful so her father wouldn't send her away. Remembered that fear of having nowhere to belong. "You got more than a job," she told him. "You got a place, long as you want it." Cal looked at her like she'd handed him the world. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't." The work consumed them. Dawn to dusk, sometimes beyond. Rowan's hands, already calloused from winter, developed new layers of toughness. Her back ached constantly. She fell into bed each night too tired to dream. But it was different from survival work. This was building towards something. Every post set, every board nailed, every stone laid for the foundation was progress you could see and touch. The land was changing under their hands, transforming from battlefield to home. Cole worked beside them despite his healing wound. The first time Rowan caught him hauling timber he shouldn't be lifting, she confronted him. "You're going to hurt yourself." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding through your shirt." He looked down, saw the red stain spreading across his side. "That's probably not good." "Sit down before you fall down." Again. She re-stitched him in the barn while Cal held the lamp and tried not to look queasy. Cole bore it without complaint, though she could see the pain in the white lines around his mouth. "You're supposed to be the smart one," she said, tying off the thread. "Smart people don't tear their stitches hauling lumber." Smart people also don't rebuild ranches with a skeleton crew and minimal funding. Yet, here we are. That's different. How? Because the ranch is worth it. You injuring yourself isn't. Cole caught her wrist, gentle. The ranch is worth it because you're building it. That makes you worth protecting, even from my own stupidity. Rowan felt her face heat. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't have to make sense, just has to be true. He let go, leaned back against the hay bale. I'll be more careful, but I'm not sitting idle while everyone else works. Then stick to planning and paperwork. You're better at that anyway. Was that almost a compliment? Don't let it go to your head. But she made sure he ate more at meals after that, and didn't assign him the heavy lifting. Cole noticed but didn't comment, just shifted his focus to the things he could do, managing supplies, coordinating with Carson on equipment deliveries, handling the legal paperwork that seemed to multiply daily. 6 weeks in, Deputy Marshal Hendricks visited with news. Marcus and Silas had both been convicted on federal fraud charges. Marcus got 8 years. Silas got 12, with additional charges pending for the murder investigation into Frank Garrett's death. They're appealing, Hendricks said, but the convictions will stand. Federal prosecutor built an airtight case. He handed Cole a stack of papers. Also, the territorial court reversed Marcus's guardianship claim. Your assets are fully restored. You're free to access everything he froze. Cole stared at the papers like they might vanish. Everything? Everything. The Triple Cross operation, your mining investments, the cattle contracts, all of it. Hendricks paused. You're a wealthy man again, Mr. Ashford. If you wanted to leave, rebuild your empire elsewhere, nothing's stopping you. Cole looked at Rowan. She kept her face neutral, but her stomach had gone tight. This was it. The moment he could walk away from this hard life, go back to being the cattle baron with resources and influence. I appreciate you letting me know, Marshal, Cole said, but I'm exactly where I want to be. Relief flooded through Rowan so strongly she had to sit down. Hendricks raised an eyebrow. You're choosing a half-built ranch over established operations worth 10 times as much? I'm choosing partnership over empire. Turns out empire building is lonelier than it looks. Cole set the papers aside. I'll access enough to accelerate construction here and settle some old debts. The rest can stay invested. I'm not interested in running a territory anymore. After Hendricks left, Rowan found Cole on the hill by the graves. He was staring at the sunset, lost in thought. You meant that? She asked. About staying? Every word. But you could have everything back. The life you built before Marcus. The life I built before was hollow. Big ranches, profitable contracts, people who respected my money but not necessarily me. He turned to face her. Here, I'm building something that matters. With someone who sees me, not my bank account. Why would I give that up? Because it's hard. Because we might fail. Because... She stopped, frustrated with herself. Because I don't understand why you'd choose this over easy. Easy is overrated, and we're not going to fail. His voice was certain. But even if we did, I'd rather fail at something meaningful than succeed at something empty. Rowan didn't have words for what she felt. So she just stood beside him as the sun set, two people who'd chosen the hard road because it led somewhere worth going. The house went up over the summer. 2 stories like Cole had drawn, with a wide porch and real glass windows. Not fancy, but solid. Built to last. The day they nailed the last shingle, May's crew celebrated with whiskey and songs that were mostly inappropriate but completely heartfelt. Cal had grown 3 inches and put on muscle from the work. He could handle a team of horses now, repair fence without supervision, and had opinions about cattle breeds that he'd argue with anyone who'd listen. Watching him bloom from scared orphan to confident young man made Rowan think about second chances. About how the frontier took so much, but sometimes, if you fought hard enough, gave back. By autumn, they had the basics operational. Barn rebuilt and stocked. Bunkhouse finished and occupied by 4 hired hands May had recommended. Fencing complete around the grazing land. Cattle purchased with Cole's restored funds. 50 head to start, good breeding stock that would multiply if they managed it right. The first drive-through came in October. Drovers heading south for winter, 100 head of cattle that needed overnight grazing and fresh water. Rowan charged them fair rates, and they paid without complaint, grateful for the convenience. When they left the next morning, she counted the money 3 times to make sure it was real. We just made profit, she told Cole, disbelieving. First of many. He was grinning like a fool. We're officially a functional operation. Functional. There's that word again. Best word in the English language. They celebrated quietly that night, just the 2 of them on the porch of the completed house. The stars were sharp overhead, the kind of clarity you only got in frontier autumn. In the distance, the cattle moved in their pens, a sound that meant security and future. Can I ask you something? Rowan said. Always? Why me? Really? Not the practiced answer about courage and refusal to quit. The real reason you stayed. Cole was quiet for a long time. You want the truth? Always. Because when I was bleeding in your barn, convinced I was dying, you treated me like a person instead of a problem. You didn't see wealth or status or potential use. You just saw someone who needed help. He looked at her. My whole life, people saw what I could give them. Money, connections, opportunity. But you saw me. Just me. Broken and scared and trying not to die. And you helped anyway. That's just basic decency. It's rarer than you think. His hand found hers in the darkness. You gave me something I'd lost. A reason to trust people again. to believe partnership could be real instead of transactional. I stayed because here, with you, I'm not a resource to be used. I'm just coal. And that's worth more than any empire. Rowan's throat was tight. I'm not good at this, at saying what I feel. You don't have to say it. You show it every day. He squeezed her hand. The way you make sure I eat. The way you redistribute work when someone's struggling. The way you've given Cal a future he never thought he'd have. That's worth more than any words. She leaned against his shoulder, letting herself have this moment of peace. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, more frontier hardness. But tonight, she could just be, with someone who saw her and stayed anyway. Winter came hard that year. The first snow fell in November, and by December they were buried under 4 feet of white. But this time, Rowan had a warm house, stocked supplies, and people around her. The cold was just weather, not a threat. They spent the winter months planning. Cole drew up expansion ideas while Rowan calculated costs. They argued about priorities. Cole wanted a trading post to serve passing drovers. Rowan wanted to invest in more breeding stock. Eventually, they compromised on both, scaling each down to affordable. Cal spent evenings learning to read better. Turned out the boy was sharp when given the chance. He devoured books on animal husbandry and land management, asked questions that showed real understanding. By spring, he was managing the livestock better than some men twice his age. You ever think about the future? Rowan asked Cole one February night. Long term, what this place becomes? All the time. He set down his pencil. I think it becomes a hub, not just a ranch, but a community center. The trading post serves travelers. We help new homesteaders get established. Maybe start a school eventually, give frontier kids a chance at education. That's ambitious. So was surviving the winter you went through. So was rebuilding from nothing. We've done impossible before. He paused. What do you see? Rowan thought about it. I see the graves on the hill with flowers instead of just stones. I see children playing where I used to cry. I see this valley full of people helping each other instead of tearing each other down. She looked at him. I see home. Real home. The kind that doesn't die when people do. Then that's what we build. Spring brought unexpected visitors. The first was Billy Hooks, now 15 and apparently having used his courier money to buy himself a decent horse and new clothes. I came to see if you needed help, he said, and to say thanks. That money you paid me? I used it to get Pa into a treatment program for his drinking. He's been sober 3 months now, longest stretch since Ma died. Rowan felt something warm in her chest. That's good, Billy, real good. It's because of you. You trusted me when you didn't have to, paid me fair for dangerous work, treated me like I mattered. His voice cracked slightly. I wanted to pay that forward, help someone else the way you helped me. They hired him on the spot. Billy fit right in with Cal and the other hands, bringing enthusiasm and surprising competence for someone so young. The second visitor was May Vesper, riding in with news that the territorial legislature was forming. They want representatives from each region, people who know the land and the challenges. Your name came up. My name? Rowan stared. I'm 18. I barely know how to run a ranch, much less represent a territory. You know how to fight corruption. You know what frontier families need to survive. You've got respect from people who matter. May grinned. Plus, you shot Silas Mercer and lived to tell about it. That counts for something. I'm not a politician. Good. We've got enough politicians. What we need are people who'll speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. May's expression turned serious. The territory is changing, Rowan, growing. We can either shape that growth or let the same old patterns repeat. Men like Silas taking what they want, the powerful crushing the weak. Or we can build something better. Rowan looked at Cole. He shrugged. It's your choice. I'll support whatever you decide. She thought about Frank Garrett, trying to investigate corruption and dying for it. Thought about the people in Black Hollow too scared to speak up until someone showed them it was possible. Thought about Cal and Billy, kids who deserved better than the frontier usually offered. If I do this, she said slowly, I'm going to make enemies. You already have enemies, May pointed out. Might as well make them count for something. And I won't be some token young woman they parade around. I'll have actual say in decisions. That's the idea. Then I'll think about it. May's grin widened. That's frontier for yes. I'll send the paperwork. After she left, Cole found Rowan staring at the valley. You're going to do it, aren't you? Maybe. If I can figure out how to run a ranch and represent a territory simultaneously. Same way we've done everything else. Together. Division of labor. He moved beside her. You handle the political side. I'll manage day-to-day operations here. We hire someone to help Cal with the livestock. It's workable. You'd really do that? Let me go off to territorial meetings while you stay here doing the hard work? The hard work is making sure frontier families have voices in government. That kids like Cal get fair chances. That women like you aren't told they're too young or too female to matter. His voice was firm. If you can do that, I can absolutely handle cattle and fencing. Not even a question. Rowan kissed him. It was sudden and impulsive and probably a terrible idea given they were technically business partners. But his response was immediate and warm, and when they finally pulled apart, both were slightly breathless. That was, Cole started. Overdue, Rowan finished. I was going to say unexpected, but I like your version better. They stood there grinning at each other like idiots until Cal's voice drifted from the barn. Are you two going to help with the evening feed or just stand there looking at each other? Both, Rowan called back. She grabbed Cole's hand. Come on, partner. Work doesn't stop just because we're figuring things out. Best kind of work there is. The territorial appointment came through in April. Rowan traveled to the capital once a month, bringing frontier perspectives to discussions about water rights, homestead requirements, and territorial development. She fought for better schools, fairer land claims, and protections for small operations against larger syndicates. Not everyone liked her. Old guard politicians dismissed her as too young, too inexperienced, too idealistic. But enough people listened. Enough votes went her way. Slowly, policy started shifting towards supporting families instead of just corporations. At home, the ranch thrived. Cole expanded the trading post into a full supply depot. Travelers could buy provisions, rent grazing, even stay overnight in the bunkhouse for reasonable rates. Word spread. Traffic increased. Revenue grew. By their second year of operation, they were profitable enough to hire 10 full-time hands and start helping neighboring homesteaders with equipment loans and advice. The valley was filling up with people who'd heard about the ranch that helped folks instead of exploiting them. One evening in late summer, sitting on the porch after a long day, Cole said quietly, "We did it." Did what? Built something that matters. Something that lasts. He gestured at the valley. Look at it. 5 houses where there used to be none. Children playing, fields planted, people helping each other. This is what winning looks like. Rowan looked at the valley through his eyes. He was right. The burned ranch was gone, replaced by something alive and growing. The girl who'd crawled from the rubble was gone too, replaced by someone stronger and surer. You know what I think about sometimes, she said. I think about the night my uncle left me to die. How certain he was that I'd disappear, that the frontier would swallow me and nobody would remember. She smiled. He was wrong. I didn't disappear. I became something he never imagined, and now he's the one nobody remembers. Justice comes in strange forms. Yeah, it does. She looked at Cole. Thank you. For staying. For believing this was worth building. Thank you for giving me something worth staying for. They married that autumn in a ceremony that was more party than formality. May officiated, Cal stood as witness, and half the valley showed up to celebrate. There were no fancy clothes or elaborate vows, just 2 people promising to keep building together whatever came next. The 3rd year brought challenges. Drought hit hard, cutting their herd size. A fire in the trading post destroyed half their stock. One of their hands got kicked by a horse and couldn't work for months. But they weathered it, pulled together, supported each other, asked for help when they needed it. The valley community they'd helped build returned the favor, bringing supplies and labor when the ranch needed it most. Rowan learned that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up, and it was easier to get back up when people were there to help. In year 4, she gave birth to a daughter. They named her Clara, after Rowan's mother. The baby was loud and demanding and completely disrupted every routine they'd established. Rowan had never been happier. Cole proved surprisingly good with infants, pacing the porch at midnight with Clara on his shoulder, singing off-key lullabies that somehow worked. Watching him be gentle with their daughter made Rowan fall in love with him all over again. Cal, now 18 and running most of the daily operations, treated Clara like a little sister. He'd ride out to check fences with the baby strapped to his back, talking to her about cattle and weather like she understood. When Rowan worried it was too much responsibility, he just shrugged. "You gave me a family when I had nothing," he said. "Least I can do is help raise the next generation right." By year 5, the ranch, which they'd officially named Stillwater Hollow after the creek that sustained it, was a landmark. People traveled specifically to see the operation run by the girl who'd survived Silas Mercer and the cattle baron who'd chosen partnership over empire. But the real success wasn't the numbers or the reputation. It was the kids playing in fields that had been empty. It was the families homesteading with support instead of exploitation. It was the territorial laws protecting small operations from being swallowed by syndicates. It was proof that you could take the worst the frontier threw at you and build something better from the wreckage. One spring morning, Rowan took Clara up to the graves on the hill. The girl was 3 now, asking endless questions about everything. "Who's here, Mama?" "Your grandmother, your uncle, your grandfather." Rowan knelt by the stones, which she'd replaced with proper markers. "People who came before us, who made mistakes and did their best and didn't get to see what we built." "Are they sad?" "I don't think so. I think they'd be proud." She looked at her daughter. "We turned their endings into our beginning. That's worth something." Clara considered this with the seriousness only a 3-year-old could muster. "Can I put flowers?" "Always." They placed wildflowers on each grave, a ritual Rowan had started years ago. When they walked back down the hill, Cole was waiting with Billy and Cal, discussing plans for the new barn they were building. "Everything good?" Cole asked. "Everything's perfect." And it was. Not because everything was easy or smooth or without challenge, but because it was real, built on honesty and hard work and people choosing each other day after day. That evening, as sunset painted the valley in gold and red, the family gathered on the porch. Clara played with wooden animals Cal had carved. Cole reviewed accounts while Rowan sketched ideas for the school building they were planning. Billy and Cal argued about horses with the comfortable familiarity of brothers. The frontier still had its hardness. Winter would still come, challenges would still arise, but they'd face them together. This family built from survival and choice and stubborn refusal to let cruelty win. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked, noticing Rowan's distant expression. "About how far we've come. About the girl I was. Alone in that barn, convinced she'd die there." She looked at him, at Clara, at the valley stretching into twilight. About how sometimes the worst things lead to the best things, if you're brave enough to keep building. "You were always brave enough." "No, I was just too stubborn to quit." "There's a difference." She smiled. "But stubbornness counts for a lot out here. It counts for everything." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell, lights beginning to glow in the scattered houses across the valley. Each light was a family, a story, a future being built from frontier hardness and human determination. Rowan thought about the burned ranch, the winter of survival, the violence that could have destroyed them. Thought about Silas rotting in prison, Marcus stripped of everything he'd stolen, the corruption they'd helped expose and dismantle. Justice wasn't always immediate. Sometimes it took years. Sometimes it came in forms you didn't expect. But it came. And more importantly, it left space for something better to grow. The land no longer trembled under the weight of fear and corruption. It held steady, supporting families and futures and the kind of life worth fighting for. Rowan Mercer, now Rowan Ashford, though she still used both names depending on which made the point better, had started as a girl buried by winter. Had clawed her way to survival, then to strength, then to something beyond either. She'd become a builder, a partner, a mother, a voice for people the frontier usually silenced. And she'd done it not by becoming someone else, but by being exactly who she was, stubborn, angry, unwilling to quit, and brave enough to keep hoping even when hope seemed foolish. Cole had been right about one thing. Money was just a tool. Could build or destroy depending on who held it. Together, they'd chosen to build. And what they built would last long after they were gone, proof that the frontier didn't have to consume everyone who challenged it. That sometimes, if you fought hard enough and refused to give up and found people worth fighting beside, you could turn cursed ground into something resembling home. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And real was enough. Clara's laugh drifted across the porch as Cal showed her how to make shadow puppets in the lamplight. Billy strummed a guitar badly but enthusiastically. Cole's hand found Rowan's in the darkness, steady and sure. The future stretched ahead, unknown and full of challenges they couldn't yet imagine, but they'd face it the same way they'd faced everything else, together, with stubbornness and hope, and the kind of partnership that turned impossible odds into improbable victory. The girl buried by winter had become the woman who refused to stay buried, and in refusing, had built a legacy that would warm the valley long after the snow melted, and the seasons turned and new generations grew up hearing the story of Stillwater Hollow. Where courage mattered more than money, where partnership meant more than power, where the worst beginnings could lead to the best endings if you were willing to fight for them. The land held them all that night, steady and true, no longer trembling but at peace. And that was worth everything.